it to get the service body put on it today. We had to order that. We thought it would be here quicker, so but we're finally on board with that. And we did keep our old truck. We kept the plow on it, and we're going to use it for plowing Woods Ranch until it finally breaks down. We received $10,000 from restaurant tax for improvements at Woods Ranch, which was to replace the picnic tables and also to purchase some AR shooting targets for the range. And it's warming up, but we'll get those ordered. We have two new events that will be taking place at the parks this year. We have the Three Peaks Classic, which will take place in mid-May. It is a mountain bike race. We don't anticipate it'll be a big number of people, probably about 100 and 150 people. We have the new tactical shoot, which will take place at the shooting range. And they're actually going to, I put the wrong date, they're actually going to move that into June with the Utah Summer Games. And then we are bringing back the Utah High School Mountain Bike. It's not the championship this year. It'll be probably one of their final races. So it won't be 2,000 riders, but it'll be 1,000 riders in September, early October. We anticipate it'll still be a big impact onto the park and to the area. But they're very well organized, and we're excited to have them back, and we hope they'll keep coming. So in 2017, we generated a little over $6,600 in income, and that's from reservations and camping fees. And we had 155 pavilion reservations in 2017. So we're already, we've put in some culverts out at Three Peaks to kind of help alleviate some of the problems we're having with the road washout. We're going to have to continue to put in some more, and we're going to need to pack that road and put some road base on it.
Doing it, Maria? Who's doing it?
Well, Austin, our maintenance person, was doing that. Now, Austin no longer works for us, so we're now looking for a new maintenance person. So I was going to see if I need to talk with Preston and see if he can at least do the compaction and provide the road base.
Yeah, we can help out there.
That'd be great. So we'll be turning on the water system out at Three Peaks prior to Easter. It may actually be going on in the next week or two. John from the Water Conservancy has been very helpful with me when we have these times when we don't have a maintenance person. And he's going to help me get that water system back on, and will help me train the new person so that we can get Woods Ranch back up.
How long's Austin been gone? I didn't realize he'd left.
About a week.
Just barely.
So it's just barely. So once that person's hired, we'll hire the seasonal. But I wanted the new maintenance person to have a say on that decision. So we're also starting the patent process for Three Peaks. We are required to submit an updated development plan, and so I'm working on that now. I should have that done probably by the end of the month, and we should be moving forward on the patent process. Other than that, with the new hire, they will need to complete their cross-connection certification. If we can get them hired fast enough, they can go to the training in Richfield in April. So, any questions regarding outdoor rec?
I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, Connex box.
Yes.
Did you get that figured out?
We've got it kind of figured out. So I've got my name on a Connex box, and as soon as we get somebody hired, we'll figure out a way to get it moved. So we will be moving it up to Woods Ranch just to help us store some supplies up there, so we're not constantly moving.
Aren't you just using Brinley from where we bought the box to begin with?
I didn't know. No, that wasn't told to me. I was told to go pick it up.
Well, that's your decision, but that He's the one that we bought all of those from, and he delivered them.
Oh, okay.
Expected that you'd probably. Sheriff, what are you doing about yours? Brindley,
Brindley.
do you need a number?
Mm-hmm.
He's there by the auction.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go talk to him.
You get your new truck for the maintenance truck?
Yeah, we got it. So
Then how's the water up to Woods Ranch?
it will be all right. So as soon as we can, we'll try and turn it on mid-May, just because we don't have that much snow up there.
Their restroom problems go away, or do we still have restroom problems up there?
The restroom problems are still that we definitely need to go in there and raise that one restroom. We need to like go in and compact it and kind of sure it up a little bit underneath that one little bit of slab. So, but it looks like the water is, is being directed, and so we don't have as much problems as we've had.
Or
in the
people
past.
who will drill and pressurize and raise a slab. If that's what you're trying to do. I haven't looked at it for a long time, so I'm not.
Yeah. Well, and I want to see, we always wait till spring to kind of see, what it's done over the winter time, but where we haven't had that much snow, I don't know that it's moved that much.
What about vandalism out the shooting range?
Oh,
New phones.
ongoing.
The phone surviving?
It's surviving. The phone is surviving. The phones are doing well. They haven't actually been used, so that's good. And we're happy about that. And nobody's messing with them either, so that's as far as I know. But the vandalism mostly is just bringing out stupid things and shooting them up. But they're shooting up a lot of our infrastructure. That just kind of continues, and so that's frustrating. But that's what the public can.
So what do you do about it? You can't police it 24/7.
Can't police it.
We can't shut it down and
Nope. So,
punish the law abiders for those idiots that want to raise hell with everything they get next to.
so part of the reason why we're going to replace the targets is so that at least they're of a they're higher still, and hopefully they'll last longer.
I can give you that number. Sheriff might have it on his. You got Brindley's number in your contact, Sheriff?
I can find it.
I can get it to you
We'll
too.
get it for you.
Okay. Anything else?
Was Preston going to, if they needed a little bit of grading work or whatever for the Connex boxes, was Preston going to do that? Or
I think he sure could, yeah.
Yeah.
Work that in, just let him know so we can work it in. He's plenty busy always, but.
Yeah. We'll need some grading work because we want to put it in a place where it's not so obvious up at Woods Ranch. So we'll want to kind of
Work with him.
put it behind some trees and stuff. So
Very good.
thank you.
great, thank you,
Well,
Sheriff.
thank you, Sheriff.
Sure.
Is this guaranteeing time out in 30 seconds? Thanks, sir.
Just get you out.
What a pain in the ass that is. Which password do I want? I don't know.
You ready?
Please.
Okay. You'll have to forgive me if I all of a sudden lose my voice. I've been fighting off something, and I may have to have a lieutenant come up and finish for me. We'll just start right off. I'll just kind of breeze down through this report. Our budget status, we are currently operating within our allocated budget, and we get that posted every month on our website for all to look at. Budget issues, nothing notable to report. Issues with major equipment. Right now I'm working with Dan, or the county auditor, to just to see the feasibility of possibly leasing. I know that's something that he's looking into, leasing our patrol vehicles, or a combination of direct acquisition or leasing them. I contacted him through email a while back, and he's working on a plan. I don't know, maybe you're briefed up on it more than I am, but he's working on
We're looking at a couple of different options.
options there
See
to
which is going to
see which is
be the
best for the
best.
county, the taxpayers. Workloads and caseloads. Our detectives are very busy. They're continuing to average between 18 to 20 active cases each. Patrol Division is providing good service to the Iron County. They right now they've pulled about 650 case numbers as of today, and that's about on track where we were last year at this time. Staffing levels. Deputy Powell and Deputy Hilger started Post Academy on January 2nd of this year, and they are set to graduate April 12th. At that time, they will both start their 14-week field training program, and they must complete and pass all phases of field training before they are allowed to work alone. Deputy Almont will start with Post on April 2nd and graduate sometime in July. And then Deputy Johnson will deploy in May for a minimum of a 1-year tour with his National Guard unit. Deputy Winder deployed in January of this year with his National Guard unit for a minimum of a 1-year tour. And at the Iron County Sheriff's Office, we support our military, and we wish them a safe deployment and safe return. We recently tested to create a new hiring roster for patrol. We hope to select an emergency hire off this roster to cover Deputy Johnson while he's deployed. Carrie Haber has started at the animal shelter, and she's doing a good job to maintain and operate our no-kill shelter to acceptable and humane standards. Training, we continue to meet minimum standards for training with our deputies, and in April we will be sending two deputies off to basic SWAT training at the Utah County Sheriff's Office, and we also specialize.
How long the training's at?
What's that?
How long is that?
It's a week.
Week-long training?
Well, they do 100 hours of training in 5 days, so they push them pretty hard.
It's no bueno.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be dedicated to
That's
do
still not Hell Week though.
that's Hell Week. That's what they call it.
Same thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's in the report, but I just thought I'd leave that out. But yeah, they're I do appreciate them putting themselves out there to go to that training. Because
You're not doing it again then.
me? No, I'm going up with them, but I don't go and do everything they do.
You did.
I did. Yeah, it's quite the experience. It makes you grow, for sure.
Die.
Let's see, what else? Oh, and we continue, we do specialized training with any of the deputies that we need to further enhance their, our mission of public safety. We will send off any deputy to any specialized training to further their career path. Let's see, I'll skip on some of this because it's a fairly lengthy report. Crime statistics, as of this date, we are sitting at about the same crime stats as compared to last year. Sex offenses, property crimes, and drug crimes continue to be the majority of incidents we investigate and arrest on. Incidents of opiate addictions and related overdoses in Iron County are concerning, and we continue to work with our local and federal partners in finding solutions that will mitigate this serious problem in our community. It is a serious issue in our community, and just firsthand knowledge of seeing some of the cases that come through the sheriff's office. I'm hoping someday that there is a breakthrough or some kind of a plan that comes forward to get a hold of this opiate addiction in our community. It's just terrible. I mean, it seems like every week we are responding to situations where somebody is overdosed and either come close to passing on or did, and it's very concerning for sure.
Sheriff, we'll invite you to our next meeting, but we've started the process of working against this opioid problem. We met with a group of attorneys that want to represent various counties individually. Apparently there's a big group nationwide that's doing a multi-district legislation, but they recommend that we don't do that. We still have to check. I know Mike's checking to see if we have to do an RFP or if we can just use this group. But Anyway, I just spoke about it in the Iron County Economic Review the other day, and at the end I had 2 doctors come right up, you know, because I talked about how they overprescribe and so on. And so I think, you know, everything we can do, or just these little things we're doing as we go along, are going to start to, you know, bring people around rather quickly.
Right.
So I think we're going to get a handle on this.
Well, I'd love to come to the meeting if you just include me in on that.
Absolutely.
So I know. I'd love to be there.
How has that trended? I know, you know, nationwide that's kind of a growing epidemic.
It is.
Do we track along with everybody else, or?
Utah has some of the highest rates of opiate addiction, and it all starts probably at the level of being prescribed and then becoming addicted at that point, and then they resort to the illegal use of heroin, you know, because if they can't get the opiates through prescription means. And you're probably all aware of this, you know, as you've gone to these meetings, that it all pretty much starts right there. But, you know, like last year in the United States, they're figuring between 50 to 60,000 people passed away due to overdoses. That's pretty significant, and that it increases every year. So, and then on to the task force. They're directly involved in this, you know, as a front line on the ground fighting this, the illegal distribution of drugs and opiates in our community. Last year, the task force filed 165 felony and misdemeanor cases. This is a record number of cases compared to years in the past, and it directly reflects the hard work and dedication of these officers assigned to this task force. The VIPS program continues to be huge. It works very well for us. We're gearing up for a very busy spring and summer season with all the events that come into Iron County that require extra manpower to manage the public safety aspects of it. Search and rescue, the same thing. It's been a very busy year so far, and it continues to be see an increase in the number of call-outs, especially in our spring and summer months and the fall. They're getting used quite regularly, and at the end of my report, I'll relay a story to you about this. Ropes team, they continue to train, get ready for the busy year to come down within the county and also down to Canara Falls. That keeps our ropes team pretty busy, and our search and rescue. The Iron Metro SWAT team, we continue to train monthly and stay up to date on our training requirements. And then the Iron County Correctional Facility continues to pass all jail standards, and kudos to Lieutenant Cuthers for nailing our standards on a quarterly basis, and she's doing a good job with that. Very happy with her efforts. We continue to see an increase in inmate population numbers. This is a direct result of Iron County steady growth and recent legislative changes. Animal shelter. The animal shelter is running very smooth. Again, thanks to Carrie Haber and her efforts out there, and everybody else that picks up the slack when we need extra work done out there. The animal shelter right now is in need of some maintenance, general keep-up and repairs. I'll be using the corrections work crew to take care of that in the next few weeks. We've started up our court services division. This is a division where we've combined the bailiffs with the transportation, and a couple of other personnel have moved into this position. It's what I talked about during budget hearings. This division is overseen by Sergeant Michelle Walker and Corporal Doug Brown. It has a total of 8 full-time deputies and 3 part-time deputies assigned to this division, and they strictly provide services to the courts, and that's moving inmates back and forth to court hearings, providing bailiff services. They talk, they keep coordinated on the efforts of this division and make sure it runs smoothly. And then on our Burl substation, that's nearing completion with the corrections work crew out completing that, overseen by Deputy Burr. That is coming along nice. It'll be done here shortly, and Deputy Burr's done a great job making sure that's been done effectively and efficiently.
Where's that located?
Right there where the fire department is in
Oh,
the county,
oh,
right there
that's right.
on that side where the ambulance is. When it's done, I'll invite you out to look at it. It's going to be pretty nice. Small office, but I'll tell you, our West End Deputy Joe Peterson is happy. He's nice. He's very thankful that he has an office to operate out of there. And then one thing that's happened since I've completed this report is the other night, we had quite a incident out on the West End where a little 7-year-old boy got lost. He was out with his grandparents. They were out shed hunting, and in between running from one grandparent to the other, he became disoriented and lost. And this was right before dark. And grandparents looked for him, and they called us right as it was getting dark, and we responded out. And search and rescue responded, which they that late hour. In the middle of a week, we had 16 of them show up, and then we had K-9 teams respond out. There was a K-9 handler from Cedar City Police Department and the Highway Patrol, and then our K-9 handler, Sean Peterson, responded. And at that point, we got on the last known track of this little boy, and he was headed in a northerly direction away from out there near the Bible Springs, just off the Pine Valley Road. I mean, it's out pretty remote area. And so we kind of made a plan of to start moving north, looking for this boy. And in the meantime, we'd had SEU Aviation come out with one of their helicopters that has a forward infrared camera on it to search at night, and then also the state helicopter come down, DPS helicopter come down with the same camera that can search at night using infrared cameras. But the K-9s proved pivotal in this. They were amazing. The K-9s got onto this track. They deployed their dogs, one dog at a time, so they can keep fresh dogs rotating in and out. So they started off with the Sheriff's Office K-9 and got on this track and started tracking this boy. And just long story short, they tracked him for 8 miles. The K-9 led them right to the boy, and he was all curled up in the sagebrush, he kept saying, "Well, the helicopter woke me up. I was trying to sleep." So anyway, the dog went right to him, and I know it saved his life because it was pretty cold. It started dipping down into the 20s, and we was all very concerned, and I was just proud as could be. How everybody responded, and we jumped right on this and found this kid. He was missing for 9 hours before he was found. He was found at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And
News reports they're only about a mile, so.
No, he went further than that.
Just really headed out and kept walking, thinking he was going the right
Yeah, it was quite the track. For the K-9s, but it's just amazing how those K-9s work. They don't use article scents or anything like that. They just get it on the track and follow the scent from the footprints of the boy, and it was just amazing. Very cool. And with that, unless there's any questions, that completes my report.
Sheriff, I got a request for a meeting from a Dawn A. Ertz or something like that. Is that from?
Yeah, seems like I've heard that name, yes.
I see her in the
Speak
newspaper.
regarding animal control facility. I'd like to develop an article on the current facility and what ways it meets current needs, the process for adoptions, the data available for dog adoptions, and any plans for upgrade or improvements. I didn't understand the city is about to build a new facility for temporary dog shelter or animal shelter. Do we have any, do you have a few questions about, but I guess you meant I do have some questions about. Anyway, that's not somebody you're acquainted with, or Dawn, A-E-R-T-S.
Seems like I've heard that name, but I can't put a face with that name for sure.
I'll respond and see.
Tell him I'd love to meet with him if he'd like to go over the shelter.
Okay.
Sure.
That's a woman.
We can give you my email address and have him get hold of me.
Dawn is a,
DAWN, yeah.
yeah, it's a,
I've seen her. She writes articles in Iron County Today.
Oh, okay.
Dog. That's where I've seen her name, seen her picture.
I I hadn't, so it's news to me. So you're okay with your comics then?
Yeah, I've already got hold of Preston through email, and he's ready when I am to meet with him and get the ground blade, get it a pad level off for him.
You're taking one to search and rescue and one to the jail?
Yes.
And then you're staying for the conversation with Minor Brothers about the remodeling the jail?
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay, one quick thing. You were copied on the email from Joseph Bigler about the natural gas changeover, and I just forwarded that to you. So they just need a 110 outlet near the gas meter. So
And this is at?
for to change over to the Summit Energy on the natural gas.
Oh, okay.
Savings. It'll still be delivered the same way, but we'll just have a different company, so it's going to save us $11,500
Okay.
per year. Anyway, if you can, I'm guessing Mike can probably handle that.
Oh, definitely.
So if you can work with him to get that. And anyway, I just sent you that email so you know who to contact, and they'll come out and tell him exactly where they want the 110 outlet, because they have to put a telemetry device there so they can remotely read the
meters.
The meter. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sure it's possible with Mike. Anything's
Yeah,
possible.
yeah. I'm not worried about just getting the word through. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
I think you covered everything. No? How can I follow that? Those stories. Okay. Mine isn't as a great story like all that.
Thank you.
Well, you went a whole week and no inmates were running around, right?
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Good. They're all still there. So, on the top, so this is the final report to close out the last quarter, and then because this quarter ends the 1st of April, so maybe I've messed that up. But I did print off where we are as far as now with the budget. We're about 15.68%, so we're doing pretty good this year. That first page has all of the numbers from the final one, the final closing of last year's. I did write the current inmate numbers on the top from this morning. The ones that were put in on Friday. But we have 134 county, 25 federal, and 10 state. So our total is 169 this morning. Let's see. Just on the staffing levels and numbers, you can see there on the bottom, it talks about the changes that we've had in place. Right now we have Kason Lassen in the academy. He will graduate April 19th. We plan on sending him forward to the academy starting April 23rd. We've hired 2 new officers, Brian Aguayo and Zachary Coons. Right now they're doing some of their FTO before they leave for the academy. And we've got 1 more pending, the background check and psych evaluation. Deputy Hansen went to the military the same time as Winder from the sheriff's office side. Haley Carter is also going to leave for her deployment on May 1st, which is the same as Bo Johnson. I also included the revenue for last year, so you can see we're not just one dark hole, that we do bring in some money. So that was kind of a good thing to look at. Interesting. Numbers are pretty good. And then I was going to talk about the work crew, but the sheriff covered that, which is awesome. And I think that's about it, unless you have questions for me.
I did, now forgotten.
Oh, good.
Anyway, you're both staying for later article.
Yes,
later
yep.
things that
Yep. Anybody?
come in mind.
What's that?
I had something, but I'll remember later. I'm
Oh, good.
with him.
I like that. I respect the memory loss. So.
Looks like the federal housing is helping out tremendously. Still
Oh, yeah.
much
Yep.
better than the state.
They're really good, and I know if we had more room, they would give us more. We do really good with the U.S. Marshals.
What's
But
our
with the-
average right now per day of federal prisoners?
25.
25.
That's where we're at, right? We go anywhere from like in the 20s up to 30 is about the max. Now that we're bringing in more county inmates with the new system that was put into place, and we've been a little bit overcrowded, we had to send a few to Washington County, which they so kindly helped us out just to house some females. And that's what we'll be talking about here in just a little bit. So that was nice that they were able to help us, so we didn't get in
You
trouble
saying
with over.
state or federal down there?
Just county females. To Washington. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to. Our state and federal, we have to keep inside, like.
But that's high for federal, for 25. That's
all.
unusually good. isn't it?
That's about what we've had since I've even been in transportation, but maybe I'm.
Well, we were clear down in the single digits there for a while. It seemed like we went way down.
Well, I know originally we had that whole state housing as high as almost 90,
Yeah.
and then they changed a little bit of that. But
you're-
yeah, we usually do, just because we have to save some beds for our locals, about 20, 25 to 30 would be the max.
So what finally came out of the legislature for an inmate funding increase? Didn't we get a couple of bucks?
I'm not sure. Sorry. Do you know?
Yeah, they've increased the numbers, yes.
Oh, good, thanks.
Do you remember, Sheriff? $2 or $4?
It looked pretty good for us.
Hard to keep track.
I sat through 2 or 3 jail fundings, but
It moves so fast.
nothing ever seemed to be decided. It was just a good meeting. There is such a thing.
Yeah. Did I lose you?
No, sorry, we were jibber jabbering.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
enough. You're welcome.
Anything from the commissioners to report?
Couple of quick things. Commissioner Blake was in D.C. at the time, and so Commissioner Brinkerhoff and I went to the Dixie Regional Medical Center the other night for a tour. It was a pretty amazing situation. We have a wonderful hospital here in Iron County, but it's good to have the services that they have in St. George for the major things. Anyway, they have I think I've got this right, intercatheter valve replacement. And they had the doctor there that does that and showed all. It was just absolutely amazing. The average age of the person they do this for is 82 years old, and they've done one at 97, but they go in and they have this better valve. The valves used to be too big, and so they would scrape plaque, and then they would cause strokes, but now they've got this smaller one, and they go right in. They've done like, what did you say,
65, 55.
55, and they haven't had any problems. I mean, it's just it's a miracle. So to have all these things that close is just great. So it was a neat tour. And then, as I mentioned, we're working on the opioids. I said a meeting we haven't had. That's what I think we need to do, is call another meeting and get our people together, and the doctors that would like to come, and the sheriff, and so on, and continue this discussion. Also, Envision Utah was down. I went to that meeting and with a lot of local leaders, and they were talking about having the Envision Utah team come down here and work out a plan for Iron County going forward, to envision what will be. It costs about $250,000, but the talk was that we'd try to get most of that from the private sector, but the cities and the county will probably have to kick in a little bit. But anyway, that's in the early stages. And that's all I've got at this time. Thank you.
I think you checked most of my list. What I would like to do, though, is schedule a meeting with Chad Ney, and let's talk about the cabin burnouts that we sustained on the mountain as a result of fire. I'll never be convinced that fire wasn't reignited by some personnel. I think the fire was out when we flew it on the afternoon of 2 o'clock that afternoon. So I think we need to have a conversation with Chad that says we'll waive the building permit fee for the replacement of those cabins. I'd like to see us call it a remodel, not a new construction. It ought to have some variances on city standards. It ought to be listed as a recreational, not a full-time resident. And I think we ought to allow at least 25% expansion. This would need to be on the same property. It wouldn't apply to people trying to build a new cabin on new property. It's simply an effort to help those who sustained that heavy loss because of the fire. 'Cause I'll never be convinced it was anything else. Anyway, that's a conversation I'd like to pursue in the past. So if you have any ideas on it, any thoughts on it, let's talk about it. I think Alma caught all my others. We ought to compare calendars today sometime. We got a lot of crap on the agenda.
It's
Calendar.
good crap, though. Good crap.
Well, I could rephrase that.
You could.
He did tone it down to
Probably
crap.
will
You shouldn't.
for the day's over, but
I spent last week in Washington D.C. with Cindy at the legislative. I was trying to get her attention, to get her eyes, but yeah, there were. No, it wasn't Cindy. In fact, we kind of crossed paths between meetings. Is about all the time we spent together. But we attended the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference. That was a very beneficial conference. I serve on the Justice and Public Safety Committee for NACO, the National Steering Committee. We talked in depth about the opioid problem, some strategies for legislative action. We had a lot of discussions about marijuana legalization and the impact on the counties were facing, both for medical and for recreational use. We talked, it was pretty extensive couple of day meetings involving that type of stuff. A couple of the things that I was excited about, we were able to have some input on PILT and SRS to encourage our legislators to make those funds available for our counties. We're able to have some in-depth talks. In fact, I was able to meet with the Assistant Attorney General, Alan, I can't remember his last name. That was an interesting meeting. It was opened up originally to about 150 members of our committee. About 40 or 50 people RSVP'd, and 6 of us ended up attending. And so we were literally able to sit around the conference table with Assistant Attorney General and discuss DOJ funding. That's his office is where the DOJ funding originates. Talked about DOJ funding in corrections and in law enforcement, especially in the Children's Justice Center. Our Children's Justice Center receives the majority of their funding through the state, through DOJ. We're able to describe the operations of our Children's Justice Center here, including our mental health packet, as well as our medical component. They were very amazed at what we do with the amount of money that we get, and are looking closer at our program as a model nationally, because of the things that we were able to get done here. So it was a beneficial conference. Had some good discussions with the BLM to move some things forward here in our local office. It was a windy, kind of a dreary week, but it was very beneficial. That's all I've got. Okay, let's take a break. We've got about 5 minutes until 10 o'clock. Come back in 5 and resume our regular commission meeting.
You gotta change the clock.
what's all this gobble song?
I just noticed we got this CIB prioritization meeting.
You sure are struggling, aren't you?
Probably should start untending that, but we don't have any, well, and we need, at least one of us needs to be there. We don't,
Up there.
I don't think we have any CIB projects, but we still may have, we need to look at the list.
Okay.
Well, you know, which is right here,
It was just, I don't know what.
and see if there's anything that we've got on there.
I have one for a way down the road.
Were you able to get back in?
Okay,
No.
what's that? Well, we need to get those, that's what this
Try
is
both
for, to get
passwords.
them
No,
on.
I don't know what the hell I tried. I don't know why this son of a bitch cuts me out.
I only have to use
Good
one.
money.
I don't have to use 2 different ones, so.
It's a good spot. It's something that Cedar City needs. I'm not
conference.
talking about like the Taj Mahal in Vernal, but but a space that like a
A
conference.
commercial conference center type of thing?
Yeah, it's not unheard of that counties will do this. You don't use regular tech.
They could probably
Anyway,
show it.
that's just a thought that I've had rattling
Yeah.
around.
Hi, Cindy. Good.
The USDA is doing a bunch of stuff on opioids.
Good. Everybody's jumping on this. It's good. Things are gonna happen.
Well, but it's not, we can't just throw money at it.
Oh, no.
It's not just sue Big Farm, it's like.
Yeah, we can.
Where
Do you want to just stand
What's your email?
Yeah, send
did
it.
a survey and said that
Show it on
74.
here.
I just thought, I wish
We
I
could
should
do it
have
during like
hired
public
his
comments.
stuff.
It's different in rural. We had told us if we're just
Yeah, no, that would be great.
trying to figure it out, and you send your family member, whatever, to send your, as an employer, I mean, there's tons of things that in rural are different than. Art said he's gonna put, I don't even know, do this, doing a rural plan for outlets because some of their stuff is driven. And so there's a spike in sites that are related to opioids, so they're doing. But they're doing 5, just have it's mobile treatment centers. Well, anyway, so I went to a meeting.
Sounds good.
But a lot of things.
Yeah.
An
Well, just the
overdose death
awareness,
right now.
you know. Just bringing it up in that Iron County Review meeting, Dr. Workman, who is a pain management doctor, he came right up. He said, "I want to be in your meetings." You know, just to get doctors to prescribe 10 Lortabs instead of 30. You know, those kind of things I think are going to happen pretty quickly because
Well,
they're
we
seeing
need
that we're
to-
coming out.
Yes, we do, and we also need to then stop saying, we need to admit, yes, there are issues, I've had issues in my family, not kind of under, not,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to make a discussion that it's not just like, that it's not the drug use, it's all of us.
Right.
And then, so why is David and Marie Hula on this instead of planning?
Well, I talked to Chad about it, and he's
I mean, because if that's the
That's the
zoning,
trailer, right?
yeah.
well,
Because
it's just
against the zoning, even though it's a replacement, but
Yeah.
I like David and Lori, and I not to say anything, but there's a reason that we have zoning laws, and if now they're not gonna go to zoning to have a variance, they're gonna come directly to us, and you're not opening yourself up, because if I have a relationship with you, or if I have a relationship with you, but I don't have a relationship with planning and zoning, what's to say, well, I want a variance to place in this trailer, but we have a rules. Or if I want to add a second home, but I don't really ask. But I have a good relationship with Mike, then I'm just gonna come to
well, I
then the criteria that you're gonna use to define it's okay. So I'm building a nice, second house that doesn't conform to anything, and I'm gonna pay for it, and I'm gonna build it. But it's really nice, and I'm gonna tear that whole piece of down. So what criteria?
I know him very well. We do run cattle together.
But if we do it way in advance,
I've written a lot.
the best deal we
I
could.
know. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, and I'm not saying it.
But if it was a so-and-so,
So why do we have ordinances? Or we only follow what we want?
We haven't made our decision, but I mean, but it seems that, I mean, we are getting rid of the trailers. I'm gonna go call Chad right now.
I mean, if
Thanks for your
if it
input.
were just run it, variance, that should go through.
So I know we had that conversation that I'm gonna go call Vic and then she'll go up here.
Right.
When did you come home?
Last night.
Oh, really?
Jeff came and we stayed, and then we were like,
you may or may not consider this where you're gonna learn a lot of things. Bills, they're gonna go through and say, hey, did you follow requisition software?
Oh, not me.
I thought that was.
Oh, I'm Dan. I'm John.
I am.
I'm good. I just know at the hospital like me, it's like this might be worth it.
So I'm John. Dad always
Okay, awesome, thank you.
That's
well, I got a call from Donnie Hunter that the attorneys were,
okay.
so,
Okay, I was just like,
we're down here doing.
I had something about the reality.
I don't know how long they went
They
there.
talked to Brian.
But I just laughed because he's like, do whatever they say. Okay, that's what they told me to do.
If I'm fumbling and stumbling in.
And now you're there.
Wait a minute, backpedal, backpedal.
I'm gonna be ready.
And, probably would imagine they're doing Brian on his office.
I've been working on it.
And that's interspersed. But, I know Donnie Hunter, they were proposing him last week.
Well, I mean,
Somebody else.
all the pieces are there.
Gary said they talked to Brian, but I don't know.
And then they talked, they're trying to get him 60 years old. And it was 70. It was 70, and then they've dropped it down to 65 because all them were dying off. They dropped it down to 60. So, and I don't know how many they've done at 60.
Anyway, I just wanted to, I said to Jeff,
So.
It's
Fight going on there.
and what they're doing, it's part of this lawsuit. And they're taking depositions from them, those individuals that say, yeah.
People to come in. Budget each other. What is going on?
And the purpose that they used it for back then.
That's pretty nice.
Up there on the desert, it was all, someone else had sheep out there and cows.
You know, you can run it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's all the same thing.
I probably will.
So it's positive for him to talk to him.
You probably
You hear at least one of them. Just he gets
So you had
there's 3 or 4 of them, Matt, the same way.
Somebody said anything to me else, eh?
I know, Jess is out of town. Feels like old times. I know, I haven't been.
Dan,
Yes.
did you read that memo that I sent you this morning?
I saw it and I
Well, I think we've got a way out. I mentioned that minister as well.
I know it's
And, the lease agreement
it doesn't cost any more than that.
is an option.
Yeah, so the county budget isn't the same.
And I'm thinking.
I may be wrong. And I, in fact, Zilda talked to me, I never
Yeah, she
actually
said,
followed up.
I'm
She said she did.
Sublease the whole thing.
So I'll be off by that. So do you want to? I can, I guess.
It's up to you. I just thought it'd be a pretty cool video. It's really short.
Okay.
You don't even have to. I just had it, so I thought that would. It's just nice to see.
We'll make it happen, yeah.
Well, and my whole point of that, and I said, my point was, rather than having us,
Yeah.
first of all, I wasn't exactly sure what, but I sent the copies of what I told them, funds, just start transferring, and then my body, and they would get a copy of it, sign this thing.
Okay.
Get one, and then we would
Yeah.
work,
It's up to you.
and we would track the interest. We're lucky to do that, or spend our money, and then or they would decide what to do, and they would. Did you, we have any issues with it? And I don't even know how, maybe a percentage is the wrong approach entirely, but I thought if there was a way that we could think, we could take money,
And we had a few.
even if we did just a piece and transfer it, it's just every, and then there's one body that actually decides, and if that's not the county.
No. We had a handful of
Rather,
times
it's
where
something that happens.
And I
mentioned that.
but the only thing that
It needs to say something about
caught me on that when I was doing that was, okay, we've got a responsibility to at least to manage that.
doesn't say that anywhere.
So
And at
how
what
are we
point,
gonna
needs to say
at what
something
point are
like
we
that.
still managing it?
Either they will or they won't, if the other counties want to join.
But I went through that this morning, and
Other than that, it was just
hope it
supporting
passed over. There is an option to sublease. And if we sublease that section of land,
I haven't seen it recently.
then we would have to do, all we would do is collect the
And wasn't there by
Yeah, they're gonna make those.
Just give it more.
Right.
You know what I mean? We'll come out of the funds, and, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking,
Just because,
commissioners don't
if you wanna go a different route, just
be involved in that.
have to respect
And maybe we, Keisha, maybe we have, be on that team still. So we have buy-in and say, and it's still ours, we need to accomplish, definitely.
oh, and
It's funny because the first couple times we talked,
you start getting into it. And
first
then
thing next week, come all out, we'll get them.
I mean,
Great.
somebody else
And they
does
just-
it.
send an email back. Hey, how are things coming along, you know? Send me the, price.
An update tonight on how
Yeah. We had one over here.
I said him now. I want to show that.
You did?
Well, Michael, this says I'm Brinker off in one place, and he told me to use other user. Why am I having such a grief with this stupid thing?
Stop it, would you?
The only reason you had to use other users because it used to say administrator at the top. Now that it's off, you can just type in your password.
Which one?
Try both of them. See which one gets you in.
If the numbers lock worked. Maybe I have to put the numbers in, do I?
How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, try it again. No. It's okay. Type it in.
Same one?
Whichever one you want.
All right. It took a little bit longer than the 5-minute break, but there was a couple of issues that
Look at this. It tells you what your password is if you click on that.
technical issues that were addressed that maybe shortened the meeting in the long run. For the record, I got some reading glass. I was at Walmart the other day, and I thought, reading glasses. And I put some on and looked at a bottle, and I'm like, holy crap, I can read. So I don't know really how to use them. So I'm gonna. They're kind of a distraction more than anything, but I can see sort of. Public comments.
Joanna had sent me this link here. This is the story on that rescue.
Was found in the high desert in Iron County. Police say the boy was with a small group of people, maybe 4 or 5 adults, and wandered off from the group while they were hunting for antler sheds. This happened yesterday evening. Rescuers finally found him about 8 miles west of Lund. They had to follow his footprints through rough conditions after his scent got too weak for the dogs to follow. The boy was reunited with his family at about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Recovery effort.
There you go.
An update tonight on how a missing 6-year-old was found in the...
That's cool. I like to. That kind of press. It's good stuff. All right. Public comments.
Just a couple things. Paul Cousins, Central Iron County Water Conservancy District. We're having our water fair for the 4th graders today and tomorrow at the Heritage Center. It's kind of fun to go over there and see what they teach these kids about water. The other thing I wanted to report on, Paul Monroe and I went up to the legislature last month and presented before the Natural Resources Committee. We asked for a $200,000 grant to help with our agriculture incentives. We part of our 3-tiered approach to helping with our water woes in our valley is to help agriculture be more efficient with the water they use, especially with their pivots. And they use about 75 to 80% of our water, and if we can get the agriculture folks to conserve, if they could conserve 30%, it would balance our aquifer right now, and it'd make a big difference in delaying the need for a pipeline and some of those expensive things. And so we've asked for some money. We're hoping to, we don't know exactly how we'll distribute that money yet, but we're asking to, if the agriculture folks save, I don't know, Alma, you could tell me, if you were to save 25–30% on water, how much would it save you in power costs? Would it be quite a substantial amount?
Per average farm here in the valley, that would probably be about $25,000 per
Okay.
year. Significant amount.
So we're hoping with the power savings they realize with the incentive and then maybe some money of their own, we could incentivize them to maybe convert their pivots to a more efficient watering system with more of a drip versus a spray that evaporates and blows away. And so that was that'll be administered by the Department of Agriculture, Luann Adams. I think it was ARTL. That's who will administer the grants. Mm-hmm. And then we also had 20,000 of that 220,000 is for research, and we think that Chad Reed will be very instrumental in working with us on the research part of that. So just that was an exciting thing to get news of, and kudos to Senator Vickers and Representative Westwood for their efforts in helping us with that. So.
I was in Twin Falls twice in the last 3 or 4 months. There's the paper full of metering requirements. Now they're making all the farmers meter their water and make sure they stay within their allocation. They're trying to save or eliminate the use of 224,000 acre feet out of the groundwater. They're on the Snake River at Twin Falls.
Wow.
224,000 they're trying to save. I don't know how much they use, but it's
a lot of water.
A lot of water.
Idaho. I wish we had a little bit of there.
We use 28,000, so that's a 10%.
They're just trying to shave 224,000.
Thank you.
Anyway, thanks for your effort. That's a
we
good
use
program.
aerial photography here. The state engineer does to keep everybody within their acres, and there's nobody that's pumping 1 gallon that they don't have rights to. The problem is it's over appropriated, but we are heavily regulated to make sure nobody goes over their
Well,
acres.
the way is in Idaho too, but anyway, that's a horrendous expense to install a meter that big on every
It is.
one of your pumps.
And they don't last very well. They used to have us on meters, and they would always go out within a couple of years.
They
They're
don't
real
sand
expensive.
up, do they?
If you pump any sand, you're in big trouble with the meter. So they do it by acreage now. It's a lot better.
Any additional public comments today?
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, sir.
I'm a little different today. I need some help. I mean, some serious help. I need to find an application for a permit that was issued. This is an encroachment permit, and the application is in the archives. And the reason I need this is because I met with the former president of Angus Water District, and the application has the Angus Water District on it. On the permit. And they said that they didn't take out any permits, and I could see that they don't have any money. So I would like to see who took that permit out. They have to put in an application and also a plot, not a plot drawing, but they have to show a drawing of what they're going to do. And so I need some help finding that.
Who's the past president? You're talking about Rod, clear back in the days of Rod Brady, or who?
It was Steve Swinehart. I can't say his last name. It's German. But and I talked to him, and it was the well collapsed, so they had to get the Conservancy in there to fix it. But they still have to take out an application. And if Angus Water District didn't take out the application for the encroachment permit, who did? That's what I'd like to know. Pardon me?
Have you looked on the website?
Yes, I have. No, Cynthia's going to try and get it down out of the archives, down in the basement, because nothing's on the computer.
But on the State Water Engineers website, you've scanned in a lot of those old documents, and you can search by well number.
Right.
That's what it's in.
It's a collapsed well, so like the Conservancy took it over, and that's about.
It might be on that website.
Well, that'd be great. I'll get with Cynthia before I leave. But that's it just doesn't look right to me. And Mr. Edwards, Mike had to look at the permit also. So if we can find out who took that permit and put their application in for it, it wasn't Angus Water District, then who was it?
Cindy's helping you on that.
Well, hopefully I'm going to talk to her. She said a few weeks ago, and she had a funeral that she had to go to. So it's like I always give a little bit of extra room so I don't raise too much. Can I say hell?
Just did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Cain. Crap.
Anyway, she's in the office today, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I enjoy everything that you guys have taught me for the last 8 months. I'm not so nervous talking to you guys anymore, so. But thank you, and I'd like to try and find that out for you gentlemen can tell also what happened back then. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I really can't figure out what I can see where.
On the nose.
I'm trying to not do that. All right. Agenda item number 2, prairie dog take approvals.
Morning, Adam. We haven't seen you for a day or two.
I know, it's like old times.
Yeah.
Getting warm, fuzzy feelings.
It is. Good to see you.
There's 3 requests for this morning. The first of which is for Joseph Adams. It's a lot in Hunter Glen subdivision. The ground was disturbed before we did a survey, so his options were to either move forward and pay the fee or wait 30 days. He has chosen to go ahead and receive the mitigation. So it is for 0.25 acres, 0.6 prairie dogs. So that would be $250.
250 or 260?
0.25 acres, so 250, and it's 0.6 prairie dogs. So
Not 1.6.
no,
The
0.6.
next one down is 1.
Next one, 1 point, so.
Oh,
be the
excuse me,
same
sorry.
thing, so 0.25 and 0.6.
You trying to get me out of here that quick? We're already moving to the second one?
You can go ahead and talk to all three of them.
Oh, okay. The second one is for Brock Holyoke. It's a lot in Iron Mountain subdivision. The lot is 0.41 acres, and it'll be 1.6 prairie dogs. And then the third one is for Brett Williams. He's developing phase 2 of the Fields townhomes, kind of over by the hospital here in Cedar. The total lot is over 4 acres, but the actual prairie dog habitat is 2.66 for a total of 8.5 prairie dogs. So that'll be a total of 10.7 prairie dogs coming out of the take allotment from 84, which would leave you 73.3.
What are the dollar amounts on B?
250, 410, and 2,660.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion as stated in that description.
Hey, I move that we approve the following 3 prairie dog take approvals. First, for lot 7400 Glen subdivision, 0.6 Utah prairie dogs, 0.25 acres of habitat. The fee will be $250. Second one, lot 24 Iron Mountain subdivision, phases 1, 2, and 5, at least 1.6 Utah prairie dogs and 0.41 acres of habitat. Fee of $410. The last one is located in the northeast 1/4 section 3, township 36 south, range 11 west. 8.5 Utah prairie dogs and 2.66 acres of habitat. The fee will be $2,660.
Second.
Okay, the item has been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll send out the invoices to those.
Where are we on the GCP?
What's that?
Where are we on the GCP?
It has been in the Federal Register, open for comment. They're hoping to have it finalized by April 1st. That's the last we've heard. What's that?
Great.
You do have
Yes.
You do have an agenda item about that a little bit later today. So
It's actually next.
oh, not very much later.
Not much later at all. All right. Item number 3, discussion of possible approval of draft implementing agreement of a general conservation plan for the Utah prairie dog for development in Iron County. Also possible approval for commission chair to sign associated documents as they're prepared. Mr. Erickson.
Good morning, commissioners. I have a warm, fuzzy feeling too, so I just thought I'd pass it on. Thank you.
Oh, it's just what a day we're having.
This is good news in response to the earlier question. This is one of the first documents that need to be signed for the county to participate in the new GCP. Fish and Wildlife Service is just speaking to Laura last week, Laura Roman from Fish and Wildlife, and Kate Novak, who is issuing the permits and working with us on these. They are still anticipating that they'll have an April 1st approval. This is one of the documents that needs to be signed in order to move forward, and then they can continue their process. And they have a bunch of documents that kind of follow this, and so we wanted to make sure this was in place to be approved. As they had a review deadline on Friday on this. So there will still be some additional just wording changes. Adam mentioned that they had met and offered a couple of just wordsmithing things, no content differences. So I just wanted to get approval for this agreement, and then the master permit that we had already had an action on to apply for the master permit holders. We just wanted to, follow up with permits like that would be coming, so that this could be implemented immediately, and we could just get commission approval to get chair signature on those documents that are associated to our participation in the GCP. Certainly when we get the documents, I'll send them out for your review, but so that we can have it ready to implement as soon as possible. I didn't want to have to come back on another agenda to get signatures for those documents. So they're all related to our what we've already talked about in implementing the GCP. So,
great.
Any questions?
Chairman, I'd move the approval of the draft implementing agreement of general conservation plan for the Utah Prairie Dog for development of Iron County. Also approval for the commission chair to sign the associated documents as they're prepared and presented. That's the motion.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All these things are driving me nuts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it is approved.
I think Mike Worthen was going to speak to this next.
All right. Item number 4, discussion and possible approval of lease agreement with the State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration for 636.76 acres around Canaraville Falls. Said lease lying between Section 36, Township 37 South, R12 West, Salt Lake Base Meridian, with an annual lease payment of $1,000. Mr. Worthen.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the ongoing saga of Canara Falls. This is the section that the county had put application in to lease, and allowing the county to put limitations and help the town deal with the increased recreation. My knowledge, they sent that off this week to be paid, so the county should not owe anything on that lease to date. So this lease is brought before the commissioners for approval and signature, and then so the town and the county can move forward on putting limitations on the area.
Mike, for the record, why don't you explain why it's required that the county lease it instead of Canara City themselves?
Because the reason why the county is involved is because the county has the authority to limit roads and access in areas where the town does not. And also SITLA, in their management of it, has to leave it open for the public. So that is really the reason why the county is involved in the first place.
Well, we've taken some crap from different individuals about why the county had to get our nose in their business, and finally I think things are resolved down there, so we're on the same page. But this isn't an effort to better the county other than the fact it betters our citizens in that community, so
right.
It's a good project.
Okay, thank you.
I move approval of the lease agreement with SITLA.
Discussion and possible approval of remodeling the gym area of the jail to increase inmate beds. Presented by Lieutenant Cuthers, Sheriff Gower, and Mr. Gibbs.
He's a presentation guy.
I told her she was on the agenda, so I wouldn't come, and she said no. So, but as you know from the presentation I gave a few months ago, we're seriously starting to run out of room. Lieutenant Cuthers hit me up about what it would take to put inmates in the gym. Looking at it, we have a couple of options. The gym does have one bathroom and has a janitor's closet that could be converted to a shower. With putting the bunks in there, we could convert that janitor's closet to a shower and add bunks for about 15,000, but that gives us 1 toilet and 1 shower. So that would help right now, but 2 or 3 years from now, I think we'll be back in the same boat. And if we try to add more, then we have inmates in that area we have to deal with while we're doing it. So,
well, you're right there. What's the capacity of that area? Do you estimate?
It's kind of up in the air. There's nothing really clear. The bigger thing that prevents capacity in that room is it's going to be one big open dorm. And right now, if we get more than about 20 to 30 inmates out at a time in a block, we start to have problems. So I'm looking at, I would guess, a maximum of 40, because just the problems having that many in one block. But to do that, we'd have to go in, tear floors out. We have a storage room and an office. I had a plumber come in and give me an initial estimate on doing the plumbing work to put in 3 toilets and 3 showers. Just the plumbing was about $60,000. But by doing that, I think about 20 beds is about all we dare put in there with 1 shower and 1 toilet. By doing it now, doing the bigger remodel, it allows us to be able to change things in the future and put up to maybe 40, maximum 45 in there. And my initial estimate would be close to right around 100,000, but after doing the L-dorm remodel last time, we started 80 and ended 110. So if we go that route, I want to count on at least 130. I'm planning on about 100,000 do it, but need to be prepared to go high. I think at least 130 to get that done.
Okay, next question. Will this free up room so we can get more federal inmates? As you said, we can. This won't help that way. Okay, that would.
We are on the verge of kicking federal inmates out now.
That's what I know. Yeah.
This initially our big problem right now is females. We have a very small female dorm, and the numbers have dropped some now. But we had 6 or 7 on the floor. We sent some to Washington County, and we're seriously problems there. So the plan initially is to move our weekenders and our outside workers into the gym and put females in the dorm there and now, and that gives us 16 more beds now. And that's what we looked at first, but I'm nervous 2 or 3 years from now, then we only have 15, 20 beds there, and we need to remodel it then. We have a problem because we already have inmates in that. If we do the bigger remodel now, then that gives us the ability to go up to close to, probably I wouldn't dare go, probably more than about 40 beds in there. And an additional thing to look at when we're doing that, I've already talked about the problems we have if we have too many inmates in one block, one section out where you can't lock them down. I think when we start to push those numbers, the night shift is at a minimum now. If you add that dorm, especially you get that many inmates in there, when it comes to that, we need to count on adding at least 1 more full-time officer at night during the night shift, which I think overall is about 5 officers total increase in what we have now, just to manage, just to add 1 more of the night, because if there's ever any problems there, at 4 at night? 5 at night. If you'll have 3 dorms plus everything else. If there's ever a problem in that dorm with 40 people in it, with 5 people, it gets ugly. So
this is a good project. I've met with all 3 of these good people. I asked them to bring it forward. I don't think we can delay this any longer with the long-term outlook of a new jail, probably at least 5 years out. I think it's a very minimum expense we can expect is to convert that space to usable space.
If you could get a new jail in 2 to 3 years, I'd say do the 15,000 would cover us, but I think 5 years is very, very optimistic for jail. I think you're 8 to 10 years myself, and that's why I came up with the option to go with the bigger remodel, because I think in the future that allows us to switch things around, put females there, put workers where the females are now, and gives us more room in the main block and more room for the females in the future. So rather than trying to do part of it now and then try to do it some later when we already have inmates we have to deal with there, if we just do the bigger now, then that's about.
Well, Mike, what do you need for design? Anything?
Need to have an architect come in and draw it. I had the plumber come through. We talked about all the plumbing. That's the biggest issue, is getting the plumbing in. We've got to cut up the floor. I talked to him about the conduit in the floor, and he feels like he
Who
gave
do you
me a
have in
rough
mind
estimate.
for design?
I haven't looked at that yet.
Do you have a preference?
I don't. Somebody knows what they're doing. Somebody that's
That
somewhat
eliminates some people, doesn't it?
Well, somebody that's familiar with detention stuff, because a regular architect sometimes doesn't understand the difference.
Would you guys, the three of you, decide who we ought to approach for a contract?
Okay.
Mike, that still doesn't have to be bid. That's, we have the authority to appoint professional services.
Okay.
So if you'll bring back a name or a firm and an amount, let's go ahead and get that contract underway and get the project started off.
Okay.
And as far as this morning's concerned, since it's a budget item, an agenda item, I'd move to approve up to $130,000 for this project.
Is it 230 or 130?
Well, I'm looking at 130, but when we did the Eldorm remodel, it started at 80 and finished at 110. You get into the floor and everything else, I don't want to say 100 and come in 130. I think I can keep it. Right now, my initial estimate's 100, but when you get into that, in that old jail and the floor with the conduit and everything else, run into problems. They don't want to.
Well,
rather than ask for more initially.
We don't want to start down where we know it's not going to work and then have to go through the ordeal of change orders and all that.
My initial estimate's 100,000, but we ended up 20,000, almost 30,000 high in the last one. So.
Well, I thought so. 130 should be a buffer, but you said 230, right? Or did I hear?
I don't. I must have mumbled. I meant 130. Whatever I said.
Okay, we're good. Second the motion.
All right, motion is items been motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is approved.
But I think I'm more optimistic than you because I think we could be breaking dirt in 5.5 years.
Hope so. But even that, you're probably a couple of years to get it built. So.
Well, there's construction time, but,
but
I don't.
I hope so, because I think we'll be hurting by then, even with this. So.
Well, I'm afraid we'd be in some litigation problems by then. We don't want to go down that road, even if I'm not here. Thanks,
Hey.
Mike.
Item number 6, resolution 2018-3 approving the 7th interlocal agreement with Utah County Indemnity Pool, or USIP, the cooperation agreement.
I can speak to that. This is the ongoing resolution to continue our relationship with the Utah County's Indemnity Pool, which provides our liability insurance. This item and actually the next are related. The resolution approves entering into the interlocal, and then item number 7 is actual interlocal, and so this is an ongoing interest, and it's required for us to continue to be a member of USIP.
All right. Okay. I'll entertain a motion. Let's do 6 and 7 together.
You want to do it, Mr. USIP man?
Sure. Yeah, Johnny Miller, our USIP CEO, is always on top of this whenever there's changes to be made. That's why it's the 7th interlocal agreement. It just has some updates, some changes, so everybody's on board. I move approval of resolution 2018-3 approving the 7th interlocal agreement with the Utah County's Indemnity Pool cooperation agreement, and also approval of the 7th interlocal cooperation agreement between the Utah County's Indemnity Pool and Iron County. That's my motion.
Items have been motioned and seconded. Oh, sorry.
Second.
I got ahead of myself. I've been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3728.
They are approved. Pass that over to Mr. Edwards. All right, agenda item number 8. It's the ratification of a 2014 approval to purchase a mine-resistant ambush protected or an MRAP vehicle using seized drug money by the Utah Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice.
Okay, just a brief history on this. Back in 2013, the Iron County Sheriff's Office took possession of a well, we took advantage of a program that was offered through the federal government, the 1033 program, in which we took possession of a what they call a Max Pro MRAP, and this was purchased with some seized drug money that we had through CCJJ, and this program through the federal government was called From Warfighter to Crime Fighter. They were getting rid of their these outdated MRAPs to make way for the newer ones they were going to put in the battlefield. So we picked up a $700,000 piece of equipment for under $14,000. So we thought, well, what a great tool to have here in Iron County to better protect our personnel when we're facing high-risk situations that gunfire could be an issue. These machines give us the ability to move in closer to situations and protect our guys, our SWAT team members, our deputies, as they try to evaluate a situation and decide the best approach to tactically end that situation. So this MRAP provided us a great tool to keep people from getting extra holes in their bodies on these situations. So in 2013 we took possession of this, and in 2014 the invoice finally came through and it was paid for. And I have a copy of the check here. Right here.
We've got it in our packet.
Yeah. The check was dated the 14th of March 2014. So anyway, there's been an issue of whether proper approval was made to buy this, purchase this. According to CCJJ, approval is signatures on these forms I have in front of me here. And but the county attorney's office would like to see these purchases brought before you in public meetings to ratify it in a public meeting. So that's what we're here today, is to back up and ratify this purchase made back in 2014. But just for the record, CCJJ feels the paperwork is properly filed when a signature is on the form only. Coming before the commission to ratify it in a public meeting is beyond what they expect, but is respected on my part.
Well, just to clear up the record, I'd move the approval and pass concurrence to purchase the mine-resistant ambush-protected MRAP vehicle in the amount of $13,160 for used funds that have come from drug seizure money that's available, and if it needs commission approval, then I'd move the approval and clarify that ownership.
Second.
Item's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is
Thank you.
approved. Thank you, Sheriff. Item number 9, a proposal to lease ground space to construct wireless communication facility at the Newcastle Fire Department. This presentation is only to see if there's interest from the county before presenting proposal and lease option. Contract to the county attorney for review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the glass thing, I had that same problem. I just gave up on them. I couldn't tell if I was supposed to look over them or through them or what.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I just gave up on that and went to regular glasses. So, I'm Mark Yaney. I represent IntelliSites and Insight Towers. We're a contractor that builds communication facilities for wireless industry. We design all of our towers to accommodate at least 4 carriers, so we could put Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, whoever on the tower, so you only end up with 1 tower instead of 4 of them around the county. We currently we've got 27 sites in Utah. We've got 3 that we have in Iron County, and we've got 5 more that are in the mill right now, besides the one at the Newcastle Fire Department that I'm talking about today.
5 more for Iron County?
Yes, that are in. Most of them are in Cedar in the city limits, but the rest of them.
New one on campus, one of yours?
Pardon me?
A new tower on campus? Is that one
No, that's not ours. That we're looking at the water tower on the east, south end of town, and then also the one at Canyon View, the water tower up there, and then we've also got one out at the arena at Cross Hollows that we're working on. So.
The SUU one is a Verizon tower.
Yeah.
Verizon?
Yeah, that's a Verizon tower. Yeah, that new one they built there.
Good guy.
So, but the one we wanted to talk about today was out at Newcastle. Newcastle has a very poor cellular service out there. I think everybody knows. When I've been out there, I've talked with a lot of the residents, and some of them carry 2 phones. So because one works at home and the other one works at work, so they have to carry 2 phones. And I've talked with the chief out there, and he's in favor of leasing us a small piece of property in the southwest corner of the facility back there behind the building. There is a Connex container there that has to be moved, and he's said that's okay. There's no problem with that. So that'd be the only thing that we'd have to do back there. We only need a small piece of property. I think on this one is 50 by 60 is what we're proposing. Back in that corner, it's about 3,000 square feet. It'd be 150 foot lattice tower, and that we would also offer the county the ability to put the fire department's antenna on one leg of the tower if they want to transfer that antenna that they've got over by the fire station. That's on a little wooden pole over there where they could put it up over the tower for them if they wanted to.
How does that affect the sheriff?
Pardon me?
Does that affect the sheriff for good?
I don't know if that's a sheriff's or if that's the fire department's tower on that.
The tower of the fire department is the fire department owned, whoever that is.
Okay.
So that service would be available to the county?
Yeah, we'd give them some space on one of the leg of the tower to put that antenna. Yes.
You said it was a lattice tower. Is it going to need guy wires as well, or?
No, it'll be a lattice tower, so it'll be a freestanding tower, self-supporter, and it gets designed to collapse within itself if it would ever collapse, but that doesn't happen.
Okay.
I've been in this industry 25 years, and only when you have ice on top of mountains have we really ran into that problem.
But by doing the tri-leg, there isn't any guy wires.
There's no guy wires.
That's the beauty of
Yes.
this type of tower.
Yeah.
How much wind can it handle?
It'll be rated for the area. When we engineer them, we design them for the area, earthquake and all that kind of stuff.
It's a pretty windy spot.
Yes, it is. It's a very windy spot out there.
This will provide coverage down the bench road too.
Yes, yeah, it'll cover. It should cover pretty. Whoa. Wow.
Lester, pay the bill.
There we go. Yeah, it should cover quite a ways to the west, down toward Burl Junction and stuff like that. It'll cover down that way, and then the valley, then just up the canyon to the east as far as we can see. The terrain runs into that. We offer $800 when we per carrier. So if we build the
just 1 second.
Yes.
Got
to reboot.
I got to reboot. Yeah, we have to keep recording,
Understand.
and there's a good chance we lost all that. So.
Start the meeting over from the start.
I don't know. Yeah, do you have it all memorized?
Well, in 2 weeks. Twinkle, twinkle, heroin power, on and off 10 times each hour.
I was thinking about that this morning too. I thought I should put a power backup on this beast, and I didn't.
Get your UPS for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom. Tom, are you just looking for the original applicant on that well? It's Lynn Orton. Sorry.
I think I will do that. UPS on this beast in the future. I'm pretty sure we lost everything up till now. You've got a battery, so.
Does UPS mean power for you, power supply, uninterrupted?
Uninterruptible power supply, yeah. Almost there.
You'll have to call minutes together by memory.
Yeah, fortunately, Jeannie's been typing them, so.
Jeannie's got, yeah, so we got her back up. Way to go, Jeannie.
Come on, come on.
John, aren't our UPS units up and running?
Well, in the server room, yes. On this little machine, no.
So that's taken care of, the big
Yeah.
one? Okay.
No, that's fine. That's very robust. Sorry, it's thinking about it.
Just want to check, see if you're running.
Yeah, but that's it. It has to be running so you can keep me alive.
Somebody's Iron Man. No, it actually recovered a lot of it, but no, the problem is it keeps thinking. So I'm trying to decide whether I'm gonna. I was pushing it hard to get it restarted. Yeah, that's what Mike was offering. If you, walk through that door. Thanks, Mike.
Dan talked to you guys about feasibility study.
Yes.
I've got these progressive lenses, and it took a while to get used to them, but I really like them. I have to go like this to read them.
I've got, I can't see right here, but I've got 2015 beyond here.
I'm the other way around. I'm nearsighted, so I don't really need glasses up here. But anyway, so the bottom of these are just glass. Anyway, weird thing about these, when you see like one of these service stations with the green and the red, you go like this and it goes.
But I'm back up.
There's this big old line of red because of the progressive lens. You get used to it.
Yeah, Commissioner, you're good to roll now.
How do we get our?
Please proceed.
All right, thank you.
You got to restart your computer.
So what we're looking for today is just to see if the county's interested in pursuing this, and I can put together a lease option agreement to submit to the county attorney for the review. What we do is we start with when we get a signed lease, we do a $800 payment that kind of locks the lease in. And then once we find an anchor tenant, then the original tenant is $800 a month that we pay for that tenant. As we add each additional tenant to it, we add another $200 a month to the payment. And we also do a 2-year, every year we do a 2% increase on whatever's on the tower at the beginning of the year. We do a 2% increase annually on the rent. So
I think it's a good project. I've been stuck out there in various emergency situations where we couldn't communicate, by cell phone. Had to run around and find a local firefighter that had the other cell phone so that we could call back and forth to dispatch and such. So,
It's a busy stretch of highway. And it is getting busier
Right.
out there, along with all the farming we have out there and the other residents stuff. And I've talked to a lot of the residents in the area, and they don't have any problems. Don't have any issues with
Mark,
it.
this is for
I'm sorry.
36 months?
Pardon me?
This for 36 months?
Yeah, the 36 months. Well, the 36 months, it gives us time to get the contract in place, start marketing it, and then once we find our anchor tenant, then we'd start our construction on it. And then, so it's originally a 10-year lease with 9 5-year onto that, added onto that.
Swapped over the pole audio system, like you'll feed. So if it's ever wrong, just hit that switch button right there.
Right.
Let's get it done. I'd move the approval of the lease agreement with.
Now, this was just for discussion today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for discussion today to move forward.
Move forward.
So
okay. So I need to send the lease agreement to the county attorney, or should I send it to? Who should I send that to?
I would, send it to Mr. Edwards at the county attorney's office.
Okay.
Then go ahead and submit an application to be on the agenda to approve the lease probably at the next meeting. Is that your time frame, or?
I can have I can have our legal have it up by end of today probably.
Yeah, and then I would like to have a copy as well for
Absolutely.
public inspection. So.
Okay.
Okay.
And then get on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know. What typically does Insight usually pay for a lease like this?
This is typically what we pay.
And I didn't hear that. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's $800 a month for the first carrier. And then every time we add a carrier, it's an additional $200. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you will get your land use permits from us, right?
What's that?
That will not include land use permits, so work with us on your.
Oh, yeah. And I've been in your office talking to you. Good talking to you guys.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say, is that this doesn't authorize the project, it just is the land lease, and then we'll have conditional use permit.
Right.
For the building of the tower.
Matter of fact, you and I talked about this.
Okay, just for the record, we've struck number 10 from the agenda today for some further follow-up with that issue. So we'll move on to number 11.
I thought I did.
Review for approval or denial, applications for continued exemption and applications for property tax exemption which have been submitted by religious, educational, or charitable organizations requesting tax exempt status on personal or real property for the 2018 tax year.
And does it kick itself off?
Dan's going to go visit, get Christine to come speak to this one.
Yeah.
She was?
She just left.
Oh.
That's not illuminate. How can I tell?
When you type, just make sure it types bubble. Yeah.
That's
Maybe
where
in
he
50
went.
years, I'm gonna get used, as long as Edwards is here to keep my ass going, I'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay, that should pull back up for you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I think I get that funny picture again.
What's your concern?
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Popping my head in and out, but okay. Obviously, I'm here to present the properties that have requested tax exempt status for the 2018 tax year. These individuals have to apply each year by the deadline of March 1st. Let's see, do you have what my sheets, do you have those to look at? Because I did not make extra copies.
I do have one here. And in fact, it didn't make it into your packet.
Okay, the The easiest one to look at is the one that is just the one page. It says charitable education and religious changes, new, etc. for 2018. That's just the Reader's Digest version of the changes for either properties that are new this year, the individuals that are requesting new exemptions, for vehicles that would be new, or vehicles sold, or properties sold. So if I could, I'd like to start at the top of that list. The first one is Cedar City Housing Authority. This is a duplex and a single-family home that are on the same property that they're requesting exempt status for. Children's Discovery Learning Center, they purchased a new bus. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purchased 2 new vehicles and constructed a residence for their temple president. I'll kind of stop right there. Those, I feel, meet the criteria for receiving exempt status. The next 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. The next 6 are Dixie and Ann Levitt Foundation. The first one listed there, B101816, which is showing on our records as land only, because that is the place where that apartment building is being constructed. I do have a copy of that because I have a little bit of issue with it. If I could hand those out.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, this is, I guess it's an aerial that Dixie Levitt provided with one of their applications. You can see the apartment there in the front. It is not completed. It is still under construction. And then there are 5 that I highlighted in red there at the top of it, which are designated as parking lots. So that is the 6 parcels that they are requesting exempt status on this year. The properties that are parking lot, I don't feel that there's a problem with those because they are used by the students that attend campus or live in that vicinity. However, the building, one, it's not completed. It was not as of the first of the year. It may most likely be by the end of this year and occupied. However, last year when the application came in on this same property seeking exempt status, it was denied based on several things, and if I could just read really quickly the letter that you had me send last year, so you know kind of where I'm coming from this year. Basically, the letters to inform Dixie Levitt that you met, and then after reviewing your application for property tax exempt status regarding parcel B 1018-16, it's decided to deny your request for exempt status at this time. The decision was based on several factors. There was concern over the lack of a lease agreement with Southern Utah University and the foundation, being Dixie Levitt, stating the specific use of the property. This includes knowing if all or just part of the apartments would be used for scholarship housing. Also, it is uncertain if this property should qualify while the project is being built or after it is ready for occupancy with qualifying students receiving scholarship housing. And then it goes on to state that they have 30 days if they disagree with the decision. And that was dated March 28th. And then on May 2nd, I sent them a letter informing them that their 30-day appeal period had passed, and so that the property would remain as a taxable property. So nothing has really changed other than the fact that there is a building sitting on it that is still under construction. We don't know how many of those different apartments are going to be leased for revenue, or how many may be used for scholarship housing. So my recommendation, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Mike, I apologize, to see if maybe he hopefully feels the same way, to kind of back me up on that, in that, well, another thing, where Dixie Levitt owns the building, they are leasing it to the university. If they gave it to the university, there would not be a question, period, because it would be university owned. But for whatever reason, I don't know, they opt to purchase the buildings, construct the buildings, and then they lease them to the university, who then manages the occupancy. So in my opinion, that still doesn't qualify, because they are leasing it to a third party, even though they are tax exempt. It's still not them that owns it. It's not the university that owns it. They're just, it's like I could go and approach them and say, hey, would you lease my daughter's house so she can get a tax exempt status on it? You know, that they're managing that. It doesn't work.
Well, they'd have to use, if they leased your daughter's house, they'd have to use it for a tax exempt purpose.
Right. But you'd have to prove that, and that's the thing. What proof do they have that all of those buildings, or all of those apartments within that building, once it is completed, are going to be used, you know?
Well, haven't they said it's for student housing?
Well, it is for student housing, but they rent apartments to students. Now they do have scholarships that if you get a certain GPA or, you know, whatever, that they will give you, at least for that quarter, as long as you maintain, you know, a certain level of grade, or, you know, your GPA or whatever, that you can live there, excuse me, rent free, as long as you maintain that. If my understanding is if you lose that, then you either have to move out or you pay.
I think that was just for, wasn't that just for the property that was not leased to the university? It was just owned by the foundation. That's what my memory is the scholarship housing was maintained by the foundation.
That, in my understanding, this is kind of what they're wanting to do here, but they're leasing the whole thing to the university.
Do you recall that there was that other property that was further to the west, and the foundation owned the property, but they released it to the university to house some sort of offices of some kind?
Yes.
And I think in that one, the county's concern was similar to other properties. You're a nonprofit entity, so you filled that prong. But you may very well be using it as a revenue generating property rather than a whatever tax exempt purpose. And the tax commission disagreed with the county on that one and said, no, you're leasing it to a state agency for a tax exempt purpose. That would be my concern with this one, denying it. But if we need some more background information, I would suggest maybe we table it to the next meeting and see if we can figure out that information.
Yeah, on their excuse me, on their initial application, I have to find the correct one here. What is showing on their application is that the name of the entity leasing or renting the property is SUU. The portion to be rented or leased is 100%. The amount of the rent or compensation is to be determined based on final construction cost, and the rent or compensation determined is based on the project cost. So they, to me, it sounds like they are not using it for scholarship, that they're going to be using it to generate income through the university.
Yeah, but I mean, that reminds me of the, other than the open-ended nature of how much it's going to be, what the rent's going to be, that's, I guess, concerning.
Mm-hmm.
But that's similar to the property that was just east of it. It was a home. And the university leased the entire property for their university purposes, and the tax commission said that where the university leased it, had to give the exemption. I think it's fine to wait to see what actually the lease agreement is.
Okay.
But if it's in the realm of market value, whatever that is for a building of that size,
Yeah.
I think that we're probably going to be required to give the exemption in that case.
Okay. All right. So, okay.
Mike, can I just ask you a question on that? So where is the charity?
So this would not be, this doesn't have to be the charitable exemption. So, yeah, you could use it for the educational exemption. The property, the first prong is satisfied because it has to be owned by a nonprofit entity. And so in this case, it'd be owned by that nonprofit foundation. And then it doesn't have to be used for the nonprofit charitable purpose. It can be used for an educational purpose, a religious purpose, or a charitable purpose. So those three: education, charity, religious.
So the education is in the dorm or in the apartment?
In that, well, essentially in that it's being owned by the university for their university purposes. It was challenged once before, I think, the same property, because it was a parking lot. And so the question was, is a parking
Portion
lot?
of that was, and that's why I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Because the parking lot was right over here.
And they found that the parking lot is an educational purpose. I mean, you could wonder what.
Parking lot for the university.
Yes, because parking lot
General
for the public generally at large is being used for an educational purpose. And so I think that you'd have the same thing with the dorms. Even if they're renting it at the market rate and it's being used for student housing, you're going to find that it's being used for an educational purpose.
And why do we not give them the full thing on the other stuff Dixie Levitt owns when part of it's scholarship and part of it's rented? We prorate those.
I think that we've determined, well, on the scholarship housing that the foundation owns, if it was at the market rate, then we determined, no, that's not really it, because they were going under the charitable purpose there. It wasn't the university renting that part of the building. It was just the foundation having it. And if it's just at the market rate, then you're just getting it for a rental property. But for what they determined to be scholarship housing, we found that that was a charitable purpose because it's under the market rate. And then they qualified for that exemption for those parts of the buildings or those parts of the properties.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah.
So are we clear enough that your direction is to award the tax exempt, or do you want to roll it for 2 weeks?
The only hang-up I have is whatever that rate is. I mean, if it's above the market rate, then you're concerned that this really is not being used for an educational purpose. It's being used for a revenue-generating purpose, but you're going to have a hard time arguing that with it being rented or leased by the university. They're a tax-exempt entity themselves, and they have an educational purpose. So if you want to wait for more information, that's fine, but I think you're ultimately going to end up giving them the exemption.
There has been a discussion about money that the Levitt Foundation donates to the school for student housing scholarships, and then part of it comes back to the foundation through these types of buildings. But I don't know if that even factors into whether or not
There's a separate foundation. There's something called the Southern Utah University Foundation, which is a separate entity
that does that giving.
That sometimes they lease. I'm trying to remember. I
know.
Get some of these details.
Okay.
Wrong. I believe that they
So many
sometimes will
properties.
rent the property. That foundation separate from the university, and I don't know if that's what's happening here or not.
Okay.
So You may want to get some more details on this, but if you don't, if you're comfortable with it, I think you're going to end up giving it eventually.
Well, no need to postpone it. If we're gonna come to the same conclusion, we just will get it done. What's the amount of the request, Christine?
There's not a value on it right now.
Just to grant tax exempt status?
A grant? No. No, there's,
No. Request for the county just to grant tax exempt status on these properties.
yes, they want full exempt status on, yeah, on the whole thing. That's all of that.
Is that your interpretation of the law? Is that your
If it's-
recommendation?
Well, I don't, what is it you're exactly asking me? They're asking for a tax exempt status because they're a charitable entity that's going to be offering an
So
education.
the question is that your advice to the commission that this qualifies for tax exempt status?
Based upon the information I have, I think that it would. We're able to look into it more if you'd like us to.
One thing to add is, remember they came to us for the bonding to help them. They went through the county for the bonding for this, which didn't give us any liability. But as I read those documents, I think that, you know, their main purpose here is to provide housing for SUU students. I don't think there was any talk that they had a profit involved here. It was just to be done.
Do you see a reason to bring this back in 2 weeks to the same conclusion?
I don't.
Not, I'd move to grant the tax exempt status as requested by the Levitt Foundation for the properties listed in the handout.
Okay, should we finish them out and then you can throw them all in there?
Let's finish out the list and.
Okay.
I'll hold the motion.
Okay, the next one down, the International Church of the Foursquare. That is the old bowling alley, not bowling alley, roller skate rink there on North Main in Cedar City. They purchased, and that was one reason I was running late, as I just got off the phone with Peter, I don't have his last name. Anyway, he's the
Just control H. You never know that.
pastor or the leader, the evangelical leader of the church. What happened is they purchased 5 acres of land to the north of the building that they are using for parking. I question whether the full 5 acres is used for parking. And so I would actually, on this one, I would like to have it tabled, I guess, so that the appraiser can go and look at that one specifically and find out for sure how much property is being used, and the rest of it just kind of sitting out there right now. At some point, there was talk of putting like pods, like we've had here at our building, out there to store things in, which would help, but I can't imagine 5 acres worth. So there is, just an FYI, there is a road that is going in on the north edge of their 5 acres that they purchased. That when they bought the 5 acres, Pete with the church approached the school district, Kent Peterson with the school district, to see if he would be interested in putting a road through there to connect the school with Main Street, kind of an arc, because of the traffic going in and out of the school. It's horrendous, having worked down there on that corner, yeah. So anyway, it turned out that they did not use any of that 5 acres. They went to the north edge of that, but there is a road that's going through there, and I did ask them if they were going to put houses in there, but it will be commercial on the north side of that road. So that was kind of news to me. But anyway, so on that one, I would recommend we kind of wait on that one to make certain that they do qualify for the full 5 acres and not just a portion of that. Iron County Care and Share, they purchased a new transport vehicle. The Roman Catholic Bishop, a new Subaru. Sunrise Christian Fellowship, they have a utility trailer that they use to haul their equipment. Right now, their building, their new chapel is under construction. And so they are using facilities at the garden, what is it called? Gateway Academy. That's where they're holding services right now. So they use that utility trailer to transport their things back and forth each Sunday. Properties sold, there was 3 new vehicles purchased by the Turn organization, passenger vans and 2 buses. There was 3 properties sold that were owned by Turn, and they are, I'm not even sure, they don't come up on my system at all, so I'm not even sure what they did with them. They must have combined them with something else. So those 3 are gone. The Elks Lodge, Friday, off and on until I left at 3:30, I tried contacting them because they did not submit an application. The phone number, the contact number I had, they do not have an answering machine, so I just kept trying to call and call. No answer on that one. So whether you want to give them a couple of weeks or a week to get the application in, that's your call on that one, but they have missed the deadline.
Contact for them, Mike. You can contact the Elks.
I can't remember the lady's name that I had, and I don't have it right here. Oh, yes, I do. I don't have it. Anyway, I did not try again this morning because I was trying to wrap up some of this other stuff. Vehicles sold, Children's Discovery Learning.
Finish back up on your approach to Elks. You want to send them a certified letter? And
I can certainly do that. I have done that in the past. You have given them like 10 days to get it in so that I would have it in time for the next commission meeting. I don't have a problem in doing that. So, on your recommendation, I can certainly do that. And then vehicles sold during last year. Children's Discovery Learning Center, Christ the King Catholic Church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Diamond Z, English Shire Foundation, the Roman Catholic Bishop, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Salt Lake City, and the Sisters of the Holy Cross. So that's the Reader's Digest version of what transpired between last year and this year. So if, however you want to do this, if it's easier to just say what you don't want to do and that you approve everything else, or I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, if I get this wrong, tell me.
Okay.
Okay, I move approval of the Cedar City Housing Authority item, the Children's Discovery for the bus, the LDS Church for the 2 vehicles of residence for the temple president, the 6 items for the Dixie and Ann Levitt Foundation, Foursquare Church, the move there. Okay, we got a comment. Just let me finish my motion, then he'll take it.
Okay.
Put a hold on that until we're ascertain through the assessor's office the amount that's actually being used for charitable purposes.
Okay.
Sunrise Christian, Turn vehicles, Elks Lodge, and on the Elks Lodge to send them a registered letter requesting an application that is overdue in time for our next meeting. And then you named a bunch of vehicles, but they're just ones being taken off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my motion.
Second.
This item has been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is approved.
Okay. If I could get your signature, and then I will get a copy of what I decided to do, or you decided to do. To you guys. For the record.
All right, agenda item number 12 is discussion and possible action regarding amendments to the Iron County purchasing policy, presented by Mr. Edwards. or is it Mr. Jessen, or both?
Happy to have Mr. Jessen do this if you. Oh, thank you. I've been working on this on and off for actually a number of years, to be honest with you. The county has an old purchasing policy that has been around longer than I have in the county, and I felt like there need to be some changes to be compliant with some legislative changes in the from the state code. And in addition, I think that I think it was helpful to make some changes so that we could have the policy reflect changes in the way the auditor's office is going to handle purchases with their purchasing software and things of that nature. I also thought it'd be helpful to, for example, in the old purchasing policy, as in the new purchasing policy that I'm proposing, there are different bid processes that are available depending upon the value of the item that you're purchasing. And I felt as though those numbers needed to be updated and amended. And that's usually where everyone goes when they're trying to comply with the policy. They just want to know what rules apply to them. And so I can just go over those quickly if you like. Hopefully you have a copy of it up there. It should be included in the packet. But in section 4, it gives you a different breakdown of the various options that are available depending upon the value amount of the property. If you start at the bottom, if the supply or service that you're purchasing has an estimated value of less than $2,000, you don't have to follow any other prescribed process. We just are asking the office or department to use their best judgment in trying to obtain the best value for the service or supply. Between the amount of $2,000 and $15,000, there are a number of bid processes available to them. One is the open market process, formal competitive bidding, competitive sealed proposals in lieu of bids. And in addition to that, if it's above $15,000, then they've lost the open market process, and they're restricted only to formal competitive bidding or competitive sealed proposals in lieu of bids. Those bid processes are defined more thoroughly in section 5 as to what's required for them. I don't know if you want me to go through all those or not. I don't think you do. I think it'd be kind of monotonous. But I think most smaller purchases are going to fall under the open market procedure, where they only have to require 3 price quotations. That can be a verbal quote. It can be a written quote. It can come in the form of an email. It can come in the form of talking to someone over the phone. That's where I think most of the smaller purchases are going to be made using that process. Other than that, you've got the regular type of RFP process, request for proposals, that we use typically. Various other processes that are available to them. There are also a number of exemptions to the rule. And we've had these before in our older policy, and we're going to carry most of them over and add a few others. And those are in section 10, contracts not suited for competitive bidding, single source contracts, things of that nature. There's also an exception for purchases made during the time of emergency, and I've also defined a little bit what that emergency procurement situation would include. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I don't think you want me to go through every section. You're obviously able to do that on your own, but if you have any other questions, I'm happy to address them.
Also, exceptions to that would be if they just go through the state bid.
Yeah, there's other exceptions.
And the county, if we were to do a county contract.
Yeah. Yep.
And a few things.
I think one of the major changes is how it's required, and this isn't just a change in the policy, but it's also a change in the way the auditor's office is handling it, but it's been implemented into the policy, how an office or department will interact with the auditor's office when they're making a purchase and how they're requesting payment. And that's going to be through the software that the auditor's office has obtained. I don't know what you called that.
Just our new requisition software.
Requisition software.
Rolling out.
And so they're going to be required to use that software and provide some documentation to the auditor's office, so the auditor's office can monitor and ensure that this policy has been complied with when they made the purchase.
And to just, I guess, expand on that a little bit, if a purchase comes through, the department that does the requisition, if it's over 2,000, there will be a pop-up window that pops up with a checkbox that says, "I understand I need to follow the open market or RFP, and I will be submitting that paperwork with the purchase." If it goes over 15,000, they actually can't or finish the requisition process until somebody in my office goes in also and authorizes that they have followed the RFP process. So in the past, we have had a requisitions policy. It was old, it was outdated, and if for no other reason, I think John pointed out, then it was just due to inflation. It was outdated. The previous thresholds were 1,000 and 10,000, and I don't know if many of the departments actually really were aware of it or used it very often. They kind of did their normal operations, and then if there was something that was out of the ordinary or a very large purchase, then if either they knew or somebody reminded them, they were going through the RFP process. I think the building department and stuff was really good at doing RFPs. You know, a lot of the departments in the courthouse and stuff, we usually don't spend a lot of money, large purchases, and so you really have the road department, the sheriff's department, jail, and landfill and corrections, and they all kind of different levels of trying to follow a policy, but with the new software, with the new policy, we're going to get everybody on board and make sure we have a very good system. The software will actually kind of force us to follow it and so forth. Sorry, I didn't want to take over, but there's more than just a policy change. This will be more of also an implementation change of how we follow our own stuff. So
I also just wanted to point out that I came up with what I thought was going to be the best, at least in my mind, and then I asked a number of individuals to help me in thinking of things that I was just not aware of and issues that may arise. And so I worked with the auditor's office, the clerk's office, IT, the sheriff's office, the road, and the landfill, knowing that those offices often make or are involved in purchases. And so through speaking with them, and I appreciate them being willing to meet with me, and we went over a lot of these things, and a lot of them were changed. The amounts, the values that push you into one process or another were changed based upon talking to them. Some of the exemptions were added based upon talking to them, and a few other provisions were changed based upon that. And so I appreciate their help on that, and I think that hopefully by doing that we work through a lot of the bugs that I just didn't anticipate because I'm not often involved in purchasing things, but hopefully through talking to them we've worked through issues that they could foresee as well.
I'd like to point out that we were all grateful to have an opportunity to kind of visit about this process, and I think one of the best parts of it is that it will help us to have a higher degree of transparency with how we spend those sacred taxpayer dollars.
So are you in concurrence with the proposed policy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also point out this is very similar to the state policy. We don't have to have a policy. If we don't have a policy, we just have to follow the state's policy. The major difference is being some thresholds, and then the state has a whole purchasing arm, which they have to go through under certain circumstances. But minus that whole purchasing arm, this is very similar. By doing it ourselves, it allows us to really customize it for how the county does its purchasing, and I'm happy with it.
And hopefully, this might just be because I'm the author, but I'm hopeful that this is a little more clearer than, a little more easy to understand than having a department or office open up the state code every time they want to make a purchase. I'm hoping that.
Then express appreciation to the attorney's office and the auditor's office. Move the approval of and implementation of the new purchasing policy, effective immediately until we change it again.
Second. Item number 12 has been motioned and seconded. All in favor? Aye. It is approved. Thank you. I know there's a lot of hard work on both ends of that to make something that will work a little bit easier for us. Item number 13, discussion possible approval of security cameras for the courthouse. From Lester.
Brett Robinson actually is the one that got the quotes for us for all this, and Jared is trying to find out all our documentation, but we do have the totals for the cameras. What we're looking at, the history behind this one, if you remember, we talked about this through the remodel process. We thought it was taken care of, and we realized it hasn't been. And so what we're proposing is, in this quote, the quotes that we had, it had 10 outside cameras on the outside of the building, and then 11 inside cameras, plus the one DVR recording system. And the lowest bid for all that was $20,664.29.
Mr. Chairman, let's like to expand this discussion and include number 14 and some other possible construction projects we have on the board. So with your approval, I'd like to add 14 in this discussion.
Yes, please.
Well, Lester, thanks for the good work. Jared, it's good to see you hobbling around.
Thank you.
There's some concerns I have. We're still not fully clear on the elevator yet until the third week when Doug Hunter comes back. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're waiting for him to come back. It sounds like we have it handled. We have the verbal agreement from him that yes, there is a code that states that the elevator will pass in its existing state. But that's
so we're waiting on final approval on the elevator. We think we've dodged the $77,000 hit for that.
Yeah.
So we also have the change order thing we're dealing with at the moment with Mesa and was Zwick.
Yeah, we have a change order 6 and 7 that I keep kicking back because I'm not happy with them. I have not yet approved it. They had a couple changes that came in, roughly 36 days after the closing of the project, and so we're asking where these were because most of them were months and months ago.
And I couldn't follow the paperwork trying to go back and
I'm like, it's a mess. It's across my entire desk. I have it narrowed down to, we're down to 2 of them that we're still bickering back and forth on, but I've kind of kicked it back to Mesa saying between Mesa and Zwick, they need to decide on that.
14 and Lester, what's the estimated cost on the basement here?
Okay. On the basement, I've gotten some bids on it. I've done it 2 ways. One, having a contractor come in and just handle the project. The second one, I'm handling the project and using subcontractors.
You're low bid again.
I am low bid. I'm much lower bid. I don't know if John got that included or not, but I got a quote from Zwick Construction for the remodeling of that area downstairs. It was for a little over $83,000, which is quite a bit. But the method I would actually prefer going with is I got separate bids from Marshall and Evans just for the electrical, and also Church Construction for painting and the acoustical ceilings, and also their painting includes sanding and prepping the floor and repainting the floor with an epoxy paint. And those bids came in. Marshall Evans for electrical is $9,700, and Church Construction for the painting and the acoustical ceiling and the epoxy coating on the floor is $22,800, and that's a total of $32,500 for that. I would like to ask for a little more than that because going back through my numbers, I did not include in my discussion with Church Construction. You kind of have that no man's land between the base of the stairs and the election room. I had the electrician bid lights for that area, but I did not have Church Construction bid ceiling for that area. So
That has historically been kind of a sketchy area as far as safety goes.
Yeah. And so I'd like to be able to, where we're doing the other room, just to drop that ceiling in there as well and make it uniform all the way across. And
So that 32.5 is fixed? Is there an add to that?
no, there's going to be add to it. I don't know the total, so I'm asking for not. I'll spend less than 40,000. I'm guessing from the pricing I'm seeing in their bids that the painting and the acoustical area I'm looking at, we're probably only adding $2,000 to get that area done.
And then, Lester, where are we on the amount for the EOC?
EOC, I have talked with Bill McMurrin on that. Where Garrett has left Mesa, it's kind of, the project stopped. Talking with him, we've been emailing back and forth this last week, and we are working on the final drawings for it right now. And as soon as we get the final drawings, then we will send that out for bid.
But what's the estimated cost? We had a pretty high number.
I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
So here's the problem I have. I appreciate back to your low bid, and you've been low bid for the last year and a half on many projects. I'm very hesitant to move on with the cameras or the basement remodel here or the EOC until we get a final out on the elevator on this building and resolve the change order issues on this building too. I don't see a great emergency to move forward on these. I'd like to get our house in order before we make any more commitments. So
I would like to insert a bit of urgency there. That election room is necessary for us to move forward with the primary election coming up. I've told Lester, and maybe the schedule isn't that bad, but maybe by May I've got to have that room finished.
Most of my contractors would like to do it soon. That's why I'm pushing. Now is the time I can get them in. Later in the year, it's going to be tighter.
that's correct.
And
What's
so.
your situation down there? You have lighting, right?
Well, we can't be in
there. The room is totally tore apart down there because everything coming up to the second or the first floor went through there. The ceiling grid, everything's tore apart. But I asked John not to put anything back in that room because he would have to move everything in and then do his election stuff, then pull it all back out so we could come back in and do it again.
Washington County is still actually storing the lion's share of my equipment.
So we still have to decide on new voting machine purchases too and resolve that issue and cost.
And that actually is an important point because if I move quickly enough, I'll be able to drop ship that stuff that's in Washington County and not actually have to touch it again.
So do we not have enough room in the old break room in the basement to accommodate election stuff?
That room, the whole basement's tore to pieces. We could fit it.
It's lit with an extension cord.
Yeah.
And it's not secure.
So it's like we can fit it in there, but yeah, it's not a secure area, and that's why we were trying to finish his secure area of where his stuff was. That's where the purpose of this bid came from.
You'd still have to add more power and networking to that too to meet those needs as well if you went into that break room area.
Yeah, and Mike, it's actually in worse. That side of the building is actually in worse shape than the south.
It would make a great haunted house at this point.
It would actually.
Well, I'd recommend that we do the election room and then hold off on the other, because I agree with holding off for a while till we see what happens with the elevator. And I don't think the ELC is an emergency, even though it's an emergency center. I don't think it's a huge price tag.
It's just something
maybe we could do some of that in-house.
Lester, what's
on the cameras? I would, Jared would have to get us the numbers, but I'd like to at least get the outside cameras on, just for the fact that I have wires sticking out of the building.
They had class. They blow.
Lester, what do you think the time frame is on that election? I mean, maybe we can just wait to get started, but
it's going to take them a month to do, but it's also their availability.
Is this Marshall Evans also?
Yeah, Marshall and it's Marshall and Evans, and then Church Construction would be the two
In
contracts.
other words, you're trying to catch them on their slow
I'm
season.
trying to catch them while they're down a little bit.
Yeah.
Nobody's actually really down.
Just a little low.
Little low.
But we still
I'm actually
talk-
about a month behind.
We still
They
talk-
wanted to come in February, but I didn't have.
One time, Garrett estimated 400,000 on the basement for EOC.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, I have the numbers actually are fairly high. You're still looking.
And we stocked.
We have
studs and
we have
sheetrock,
studs, sheetrock,
ceiling tile.
some ceiling tile. I don't have enough ceiling tile to
No
do the whole
lights.
thing. No lights.
That expense any lights, so.
No.
Our main expense is cutting the floor.
Yeah, cutting the floor, electrical, heating.
Well, I
that's your
think at one
labor.
time we were up around 400, but I don't remember if that attic stock, not attic stock, the stuff we stocked came out of that total or not.
I don't remember. Probably not, because we were just giving. This was the number that the architects through because of the square footage completion number.
Dan, can you look and see if we set aside 75,000 for a build out down there so we could pre-stock?
Yeah, and
Can you look and see if any of that rolled into this year?
Yeah, I can. It seems like we did.
And then we did 75 for, what else, for this building? Before we, what have I lost?
This building, we knew we were gonna do a budget adjustment, so we don't have any amount yet.
But did any of that roll, or did we expend it early on in the project?
Of the 75, we spent a portion of it, and I'm pretty sure we actually put enough in there to finish it. The EOC, whatever it is. But this building, we were gonna do a budget adjustment once we had an estimate on the landscaping, we had an idea of what finished on the furniture, and then had an estimate on the sign. So this budget on this building is right now at 0. I'm pretty positive the EOC, there's a budget in there. I can go check.
Commissioner, I have those figures right here, Dan.
Good.
We put in 100,000 more this year for the public safety improvement, which was for the OC.
No, that's actually landscaping.
Was that all landscaping?
That was mostly landscaping.
That's public safety though.
Yeah.
And when's that contract gonna start, Lester, by the way?
I'm going to send it out for bid again. We did it so long ago that none of my bids are valid anymore, so I'm going to have to send it out for bid again.
Reed, does that give you heart murmur?
No, I think it's a better move.
Well, yeah, and we had a time crunch last time when we did it. We
think
gave them a
we'll get a
really
better
short
price
window,
this
and so now if we send it out, I can lengthen that window because we were trying to get it done before they had their open house and everything. And
We'd hope, because I don't think we're gonna change our contract with the state many more times.
yeah, so I'm hoping if I lengthen it out.
We can do it within the money that we had allocated.
Oh yeah, easily.
I talked to Wayne at the Capitol the other day, at Building Board. He's still planning to send the year extension as a separate amended issue to that contract, so we're still looking for that. Anyway, re-up the numbers, but I thought at one time we were up around some terrible number of 400,000. And that's not high on our list today.
Yeah,
For tomorrow.
When's the open house plan for the?
I don't think we're having one planned anymore.
Okay.
That was back in November, I think. We were trying to get it done before last November, and
Public safety?
yeah, the outside, but we couldn't get them to agree on the.
Around 65,000.
Yeah,
But that's in our request back to,
yeah, it was in the we had the numbers, so we included that in the contract with the state, so. That's one
Well,
reason we didn't
I'll buy
proceed,
in on the-
because we wanted them to sign off on it before we spent the money.
so what'd we get to on the basement down here?
40,
Good.
up to 40,000.
Up to 40.
was requested. Hopefully it'd only be about 35.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to take on any more debt, but if there's a time crunch, I guess I'd back off and still roll the
cameras. And still waiting on the elevator and the change order and EOC. So I don't put the cameras up that high a item for the next 2 weeks. Well, let's see. So number 3, then my motion for item number 3, agenda number 3, is to
13.
hold the
Number
camera
13.
request. And going on to 14, to approve up to $40,000 for the completion of this basement for election equipment.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said on 13, Commissioner.
We go ahead and, no, we'd roll that for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Till after the elevator and the change order resolution, whatever that, if it's more than 2 weeks, but again, the elevator inspector's supposed to be here the 3rd week.
Yeah, so that's.
So let's bring that back on the next item, the next, excuse me, next agenda. So we'd approve, the only thing we'd approve today would be up to 40,000 on the basement build out.
Okay. So the motion is item 13. We're going to roll that for 2 more weeks and approve up to $40,000 on item number 14. All in favor? Aye. It is approved. We move on to item number 15, discussion of possible decision regarding disposition of the Fiddler's Canyon building.
Yeah, got to thank Reed for this. He worked all weekend and was able to get these numbers back together for us.
Thank you, sir.
And actually, Reed's here, so I'm going to have him come up. He can probably explain it better than I can. But he's went through, and these are the available square footages that's available in the Fiddler's Canyon building. And then if you go down to the pot, if these are current rental rates through the state, and if we rented out the entire building, that would be the rental income minus what we've been spending for maintenance on that building for the year. Currently, we have interest in renting the northeast and northwest suites and also the southwest suite. Southwest suite, Water Conservancy District would like to move into there. And then there's a private agency that would like to move into those northeast offices, or those north offices. And then I ran some numbers on them. With the rental rate of $11.33 a square foot, you'd get $43,665 a year from their rent, which would offset our costs. So our costs for maintaining the building would be down to
So Lester, you're saying
$18,000.
the total upstairs is being asked for?
No, we'd still have the southeast suite where Water Conservancy currently is would be vacant.
And nothing on the basement, no?
And nothing in the basement right now.
On the basement.
These figures were simply projections if the entire building were full.
Yeah.
This is what it would generate.
And you asked for
if you rented out the whole thing.
So what do you see as the rental market?
It's, we've had inquiries, and these figures, they're not market figures. These are figures that we are currently renting for on other facilities. So you could look a little higher if you went out to market and went into private sector, but these are government ones that we've been renting from the state, and the state has been renting from us. So, for example, the 1370 figure there, that's on the new public safety building. That's what we're charging to amortize our debt. And then we're charging another $5, and that's the 1870 for replacement and maintenance fund. And so the total we're getting on that building is 1870. Does that make sense?
On which building?
So it ranges, and so I just wanted to give you a range. The lowest thing that we had and what the Conservancy District has been paying where they are in that building is $10.25. And that's what the Five County was paying for the whole downstairs when they were down there.
And over at Public Safety, we're at,
But at Public Safety, we're at $18.70.
and that's,
And the visitors building, the visitors center, where Five County moved over, we're charging the $11.33.
and we have a negotiable with Public Safety.
Yeah, with the because our base rate with public safety is the $13.70, and then he added the $5 on. That's our negotiable. Where if it becomes more costly to
Well, it will.
maintain, that we can.
At some point in time, when the contract actually is paid out, whoever's around the Lifestyle then will negotiate it, and that 13 will go up.
We'll monitor our costs over the next couple of years, and that can change.
But I think the raw cost of the space will increase
The
at
raw
the end of the
cost for-
contract.
The $13.70 covers the amortization of the building to pay for the building.
But at the end of that contract, county certainly won't renegotiate that lease for $13.70 again.
Right.
But it does pay it out, so.
That's just to pay the debt. To pay 25 years.
One question, we got the improvements line item on the expenditure side, 17,000. Is that just an estimate that we would have?
These
for
are the
year?
2018 budget numbers that
Actual
we
numbers.
said this is what we could spend this year on improvements in the building. Some paint and some other things that were gonna be done in the building. So that wouldn't have to be spent. And the contracts for the cleaning and the groundskeeping is just our budget figures for 2018. They're a little more than what our actual contracts are. The maintenance fees and the utilities are, they're a little less than those things, but those are what we budgeted to make sure we had enough for 2018.
What's the urgency of the lessee wanting to get in there?
The Water and Conservancy District would like to move immediately.
But they're already there.
They're already there, but they would like to change offices.
They wanna move over into
Where the recorder was.
Accommodated. So the other people who are interested, what's their timeline?
I have no idea.
They're looking at having us do a remodel between where the clerk was and the treasurer was, and knock that wall out and take that whole end of the building, the whole north end. But they're currently located, it's a private engineering company that's located south of the building, to the south of that.
Okay.
They just expressed an interest, so.
Do we have a current appraisal on that building in the last 2 years? Do we ever have it appraised?
We haven't requested.
That's true.
We have the appraisal off the parking lot we bought, 125, and that's what we paid. I think we ought to have an appraisal on the building and then decide if we want to put it up on the market or be in the lease business.
Yeah, well, and even if we went into the lease business, that would probably make it more valuable, depending on what somebody wanted to purchase it for. If they wanted it for themselves, or if they wanted to purchase it to lease it.
The Water Conservancy District, they're interested, they wanna know what it's worth, maybe they'd be interested in purchasing it.
So why don't you contact Corey Hymas from Morley McConkie and have him run one. That's gonna cost us $3,000.
Okay.
About right?
Yeah.
I think we need to know that before we enter into a lease agreement on with renters. We need to get in or out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what the discussion's about. We need to go. We need some direction.
Once you pursue that, then
Got bait.
Get an estimate.
Corey Hymas is probably the best around.
What's his name?
Corey Hymas
Okay, yeah, Corey.
with Morley McConkie.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thanks for all.
Personnel items. Justice Court being the first. Adrian.
First and only.
First and last. Not
Okay,
used
this,
to that.
Just a discussion, kind of an update on our judge situation. Judge Dunlap's been covering in the absence of Judge Miller. Judge Dunlap's actually contracted like for 20-hour work week, and in Judge Miller's absence, which projects to be somewhat ongoing due to health concerns, but he's been working in excess of the 20 hours, sometimes as high as 31, 32 hours per week, but averaging more in the realm of about 28 is about the average. Okay, so so there's just in terms of asking for discussion and some feedback in terms of where we can maybe adjust his compensation and do some kind of contract that's on a temporary basis to just fairly address the issue so that he's being compensated for the additional hours worked, and so that we can also have the assurance that the hours needed to conduct all of the court related services are being done and completed. As part of this, there was a question about whether or not we could do this on a temporary basis, and Mike's helped with contacting the AOC, and they've confirmed that if we, and correct me if I'm misspeaking, Mike, but just if we do it in some kind of a formal contract and specify a date range and acknowledge that from both sides that it's temporary, just because it does project to come to an end when Judge Miller is able to come back to full employment, and Judge Dunlap's in complete understanding and agreement, and just knows that it would just be kind of on basically a month-to-month evaluation. So really what the recommendation from my end would be is just to specify that he's to stay under the 30-hour threshold, and increase his compensation accordingly, just going by his current contract and his compensation, to get an hourly rate to increase it by that proportionate amount.
So do you have a contract prepared?
That's where I was going, is really if we get the go-ahead and kind of the agreement to do that, Mike has said that would be something that he would need some time to prepare and work on, but that's kind of the direction that we would go if that's the direction.
So this would increase how much?
If we do the 30-hour, which is kind of what we were looking at, you'd look at a weekly increase just in wages, $222.50 over I thought I had some numbers, but I might not have brought those with me, but I can calculate it really quick.
And that's base, though.
Excuse me?
That's base salary.
Yeah, that's just base. Like I say, that's just base salary increase. So you'd have a little bit of taxes. He's not benefits eligible, so we don't have that cost. It's just you're just looking at base salary plus a little bit more.
11,500
taxes. Yeah.
So he'll just have, if there's more than 30 hours of work, then he's going to have to schedule it into later.
He would have to, and I think we'd need to specify that because that's the threshold that we need to work within to make sure that he remains part-time as a part-time employee, and that worked for him. I've had numerous conversations with him. He's understands that and would just work his schedule in a way that he would accommodate that. And with this, though, it's even going off of the last number of weeks, it's going to put us right where we need to be to make sure everything's being done. But he's also can feel like he's being fairly dealt with and compensated for the additional work that's being put in.
So I talked to Mr. Jim Peters, who's administrator from the AOC, because of the issue that state statute says we can't reduce a judge's salary while they're in office. We've said, no, we're not going down that road. And then he called back and said, well, we've decided that this is very unusual, so you could handle it by a very strongly worded contract that acknowledges this is a part-time. But he's probably putting in that much time now, but last time I met with he and Judge Miller and Jim Peters, AOC estimated their workload at 0.8 FTE, and we have a full 1.5. So if Margaret's working some at home, picking up any slack, it almost seems, according to AOC records, that he ought to be about within the time allowance that they think is necessary for the work. If you take a minute and look at the citations comparison, you'll find that citations are down appreciably clear across the board with Highway Patrol, Cedar City, and the Sheriff's Office. So I'm not overly generous about this proposal. As you know, we've had this conversation before. Are you still expecting some retroactive pay?
I was going to make that a part of the, discussion. It would. I've got a breakdown of the hours worked to this point. That would, in order to back pay those hours, you'd be looking at about a little over $1,000 in payroll expense. 1,036, 41 cents to be exact. No, I shouldn't. That's just base wages. So. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be very, very close to that, just because taxes would be minimal. But, and I understand the point that you're making, Commissioner Brinkerhoff, and I had talked to Lori, the court administrator, and kind of raised that concern in terms of that 0.8 judge rating. She added some additional insight, saying that in terms of they don't take all of the, even though it takes into account a majority of the services that are being provided from the judges, there are some additional hours and duties. The details that we would need to specify with her, but she just says that there is a little bit more work there in terms of that goes on top of that 0.8 judge rating. And really, if we just look at that, I mean, Judge Dunlap on a 20-hour contract, he's at 0.5, right? And I know it's been discussed that Judge Miller is doing a little bit of work from home in terms of warrants and some things that she can do within her restrictions. But Lori's confirmed that that's kind of hit and miss, and we're just and rightfully so. I mean, she's dealing with. She's just wants to stay within doctor's orders, but very minimal time is being put in from that side. So I think the 10-hour increase is, though I mean you make very good points. I think it's justified. I think it'd be a good move. I think it'd be fair, and he knows that it could be very temporary. So I think we've kind of covered all of the bases in terms of verifying with AOC, and it's just a matter of, at this point, in terms of whether we want to cut back some of those services that may project and kind of extend and some of our deadlines in terms of the court services, because and Judge Dunlap's willing to do that, to kind of cut back to the 20-hour work week, but it might be to our benefit just to take this into consideration. And things are working really well. Things are being kept up to date, up to speed. It would put us in a good position if it's something that you'll consider.
Let me read you these citation comparisons. Cedar City in 2014 issued 1,518. Corresponding in 17, they issued 1,300, so they're down from 1,518 to 1,316. The Sheriff's Office in 2014 issued 3,425. In 17, they issued 1,700, so again, 50%, just like Cedar. And Highway Patrol in 14 issued 7,907, and in 17 issued 4,457. So clear across the board, we've seen a 50% reduction in citations, which is a direct impact on the court. So somebody else better make the motion because I'm not really red hot about it.
That.
I think several things, the increase in speed, probably the 80-mile-an-hour increase. Dell, you're here. Can you speak to that?
Well, I can speak for our office only.
Well, it's running across the board.
Our numbers are down because we're down a traffic guy. We needed help on patrol, and that's where that got allotted to.
But Highway Patrol and Cedar, you're all about consistent numbers, so I attribute it more to the 80-mile-an-hour speed limit than increase than.
Our Deputy Twitchell that works the freeway right now writes the same amount of tickets as he did when it was 75. So
Bless his soul.
I don't know that it's any difference.
Still people doing 105.
No matter what it is. You make it 90, we'll go 95.
Right. Not me, Dell. I just stay right at the speed limit though. That's just her.
The limit on the freeway is 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, me either. Never. Not me.
Getting deep.
All right, is there a motion?
Well, the best I would do, and this isn't a motion, I'll just tell you where I am. The best I'd do is both increased up to 30 hours with a hard and fast contract, Mr. Edwards, that puts blood on the table and would be effective at such time as the contract is prepared. And I would not authorize back pay. So, Alma, you put in whatever motion you want.
Okay, well, I think there's some duty to fill in when somebody leaves, you know, and apparently we don't have a full 1.5. So I move that we go into enter a contract with Judge Brent Dunlap for a maximum of 30 hours per week to be reviewed monthly, and with his same wage, just increasing the hours. We must stay under the 30, so there won't be any benefit triggered. And Mike Edwards, our Deputy County Attorney, to draw up the hard and fast contract.
And what about back pay?
What about the issue of the retroactive pay?
Well, that's what I said in the first of my comment, that I think there's a duty
Okay.
to sometime pick up the slack. So I just leave that out of my motion.
Then I'll bite down a little tough and second it.
Okay, the motion has, for, just to clarify, so this motion is for Judge Dunlap to work up to 30 hours per week at the same pay rate, just the increased hours to stay under 30 hours a week, with the $1,036.41 in retroactive pay to be included.
No, that's
Or
not
is-
for the motion. The retroactive, I'm
Well, let me even further clarify. I think there's, when you have somebody out sick, there's a duty to kind of pick up the slack sometime. And not for a long period of time, but I don't think it's been that long. So my motion doesn't include retro.
It does not include retroactive pay?
Does not.
Okay, just before that, I think my discussion would be that Judge Dunlap has been picking up that extra time, as Adrian has stated that he has documented that time well enough that there has been a hard and fast number put to those hours that have already been worked.
Did he document the long amount of time that we've been operating 0.8 FTE with a full 1.5 for years? Anyway, the motion, your statement is in order, whatever you want to
So the motion is for the increase in hours up to 30 hours per week, not to exceed 30 hours per week at the same pay rate, but with the retroactive pay excluded. Correct?
So Adrian, Judge Dunlap has been working and has worked over the 20 hours, and we haven't paid him for that? Is that correct?
That would be accurate because he's exempt. So there's not really, but I haven't actually seen the actual contract that is a part of that. Maybe I'm not sure if you have the details, because that's before my time. Right. But that's just what I was able to verify, is that he was hired at 20 hours.
How much are they? I mean, what is that retroactive amount that we're talking about? I mean, I just have some concerns if we have employees, whether they're, you know, and in my office, if I'm gone and Ann steps up, she knows she's exempt. That's one thing. But if you're under contract to do this and all of a sudden you step up, I think I have some concern with, well, too bad, we're sorry that someone in your office got cancer and is going to be gone, and we still want to serve warrants, or we still need to get people through the system, but you're the one that's going to take the hit. So
is he exempt?
He is, yes.
That's what I'm basing my emotion on, the fact that he's exempt, and for a short period of time, that just like you said with Ann, you know, she's exempt, but you know, might have to fill in a little bit there.
But she probably, I don't know, it's one thing to be exempt at 20 and work 40, and one thing to be 40 and work 50 or 60 at times during the year, but I don't know, what is that number that's the retroactive that he's asking?
$1,000, just a little bit over $1,000.
It's averaged a little over 27 hours in the last 6 weeks.
Okay. Any change to the motion? Okay. The motion has been, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
So it brings up the question of sick leave policy. We need to get that back on the table.
We're working on that. It's in progress. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's currently.
I'm always concerned, as we've said before, I'm concerned about the unfunded liability against the county, which is up to $2 million now.
I haven't verified. I pulled a report, and all I looked at so far is people in excess of 480 hours, and I've started to put
I know we're over $1.5 million.
It's
$1.75 million.
There's a lot of hours on there, so I would expect to be able to bring something back to you within the month.
Good.
On that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Prairie dog matters, non-delegated items. Anything there?
We did it, didn't we?
Yep.
I think we caught up on boards. Kind of discussed the courthouse. Anything additional? Okay. Item number 17 is discussion regarding strategy for reasonably imminent litigation. We're going to go into closed session to speak about, asking for a motion to go into closed session to discuss that litigation.
Don't move.
Second. Brinkerhoff, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're going to go to the other room, so you won't have to vacate the room.
I still have to record.
Hey, you guys can come
We
back.
still have to record it.
Somewhere else.
We'd kick everybody out of here and record it here. Yeah.
They don't trust me.
I can see why.
Well, I don't have the ability to.
Set up to record back there yet, so we need to.
I guess we are.
Kick everybody out, you know.
I'll check.
Ask everyone to kindly leave.
But I'll double check. Everybody's leaving.
Damn eyes.
Yeah, this monitor.
That's got it on there.
Okay.
But you can see what's on the screen. See.
So the question is that monitor is tight to the screen.